Welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, the definitive music industry and gear podcast with Jonathan Gilmet and Frank Fleckenstein.
What's up, everybody? Good morning and welcome to the Tone Lounge Podcast, episode 14. It's Thursday the 29th, and we thought that episode 14 is a good opportunity to actually do something that we spoke about that earlier, but today we're actually going to do it. I think we owe you, after 13 episodes of talking about the industry, talking with really amazing guests, we owe it to you to kind of introduce ourselves and share a little bit of the backgrounds that we have so that you get an idea. It's like, who are these guys? Who the hell are these guys who are talking to you about like all that stuff? How do they know all these things? Where do they know them from? What is their source of information? How were their experiences? And for that matter, as always, I'm joined by my good buddy, Jonathan Gilmet, aka the Duke of Voxington, coming in live from Belgium. And before we get into today's topic, which is who the hell are these guys actually, I've actually picked out a few things that I thought we might want to look at together, and some news. There's not much gear related news because NAMM has passed, and that kind of had a wave of news, but it's died down a little bit. But there's some other interesting things. So let me just share my screen with you. And let me know if you can see that.
I can.
Okay. The most ridiculous one is this thing that I found is directly at the start. So here's an amp that looks weird. That's the first thing. So it's called, what's it called? It's a design from a German guy actually. It's called Jens Ritter. And the amp is called the Encore. And I look at the shape and I don't know what to make of it. That's the first thing. It looks like a piece of furniture to me.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm just going like first impression, it's very, as we call it, art nouveau, like the French would say. So I wonder if there's anything else to the design except looking fucking goofy. But yeah, I mean, if it's a Sonic thing, then cool. I could get over the look of it. But I'm just thinking, like, I'm looking at this, and what I'm seeing is like a cartoon car that goes really fast, and it's like oblong shaped, and the speakers look like tires. I don't know if you can see it, but it looks to me like a race car. And I'm like, I can never get that image out of my head. Once I see it, that's all I'm seeing. I'm seeing a race car amplifier. But what is even more goofy than the fucking look of it is the price tag.
Yeah, but that's because this amp is furnished with 18 karat white gold sapphires and laser engravings, which
I'm sure, that contributes to the tone, right?
It definitely contributes to the tone. I wouldn't care that much. I mean, if you tell me that it has white gold and sapphires and that's why it's 40K, yeah, fine. But laser engravings, come on. Laser engravings are not that expensive. So
Frank, you have to understand, man. Anything less than 18 carats is complete horseshit.
Yeah, it's true.
At 18 carats, you've just met the minimum requirement for like amazing tone.
Yeah.
So if you have a speedy car looking amplifier made in Germany, no less.
Yeah, okay? No less. Made in Germany.
So it's made in Germany. Laser engraving. Do you know how new that technology is? How hard it is to get your hands on laser engraving.
Yeah. So let's take a step back. First of all, this is an article from Ultimate Guitar. Ultimate Guitar, and I don't want to piss in anyone's coffee, but Ultimate Guitar has a history of like doing a lot of like clickbaity headlines to like lure people into on their site, which is fine. Everybody's doing that these days. But what I can't get over some of that description. So it says Ritter has announced a new guitar amp called Encore, a luxurious product accented with precious metals and laser engravings of famous guitar player names. Even upon first glance, the Encore has unique and distinct visuals, resembling a musical decoration more than equipment. Yeah, for sure. It looks more like decoration than it looks like an amplifier. And then it says, the Encore has been called a groundbreaking electric guitar amplifier that sets a new standard.
I hope not.
I also hope not, and I also hope not that it doesn't set a new standard for pricing.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't heard this thing, but it is totally inspired by the Dumble Classic and the Fender Bassan. Okay,
the Fender what?
Bassan. Here it says Fender Bassan. Bassman. Okay, they missed an M. I'm sorry. They missed an M.
Okay.
So Dumble Classic
like,
Dumble Classic and Fender Bassman, Jens Ritter's favorite amps. Okay, fine. You made an amp that's based on a Dumble that kind of by design gives you some sort of legislation to make it a bit more expensive. And then on the Fender Bassman, but come on, $40K. What it said? The Encore has a polished stainless steel chassis. Okay, that can't be too expensive though. I mean,
no.
Additionally, the amp includes ice frosted white gold coated control knobs set with blue sapphires. There we go. That's the
dude. Yeah, the tone's all there. Like this is the making of one of those amps that's just going to completely ruin everyone that's buying Dumbles. Like, dude, right here. Like now there's a justification for the price tag. Yeah. Right? And you can't be selling a whole lot of those. Oh.
It's limited edition as well. Okay.
Oh, limited. Oh. What does a standard edition look like?
I'm not sure, but here's a statement. In a press statement, Ritter explained its intent with the model. Now it gets interesting. As digital AI continues to reshape the music landscape, Encore serves as a powerful reminder of the value and beauty of handmade music. It is a tribute to the enduring legacy of tube amplifier culture, designed to celebrate the profound impact of human creativity on music. Okay, dude. I'm like, if you want to quote digital AI, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of AI because, and I also find it partially dangerous, because it's there's enough content out there about people who are critical of AI, but I'm like, okay, it's a powerful reminder that's going to cost the person who buys it $40K. Takes 7 months to build. Only 3 will be built annually. Well, wouldn't be as exclusive if you made 10. So
no, exactly.
Shit.
My point of view on this is obviously I've been kind of bitchy the whole time we've been reading this and being sarcastic. And the reason for that is that the average musician doesn't want that. Like, if we take away the goofy look of the amplifier, it's very art nouveau, and I know this creator does like really fucking expensive guitars too. I saw him at Guitar Summit, and it was like all bling bling stuff and really goofy, and some were like really good looking guitars too. Like, I'm not saying what he does is absolutely ridiculous. What is ridiculous about what he's doing is the price tag and who it's for. So my opinion is that for someone who's a gigging musician, someone who makes like $30,000 a year, you look at the price tag on this, you go, that's more than my fucking yearly salary. Why the hell would I buy this? And yeah, it can be based on the most coveted amp in the world. The thing is that who the fuck buys this? Right? It's like when we talk about it, it gets the attention, like the marketing behind it gets our attention. One, the price tag is ridiculous. Two, the look is not for everybody.
No.
And if we strip that away and we look at it, you and I, if we wanted to buy this, we would have to go to a bank, ask for a bank loan, and we would have a hard time justifying this to our wives. Like, honey, I'm buying this amp. This makes no fucking sense. And if you use it as a piece of furniture, as opposed to a piece of gear that musicians, want to use, who the hell takes this to a bar?
You would have a hard time selling that to the bank. Let's say you go to the bank and said, I need, actually it's not 40, it's 36,000 euros. So there you go. But, let's say you go to the bank. It's like, good day. I need 36,000 euros. Sure. What do you need it for? A car? You want to buy a garage, or or you want to improve the things in your house. No, I want to buy a guitar amplifier. The guy is going to send you out of there in a second. I'm just, I don't.
That's why I'm saying something like this. Like, if you go through his website and you look at his stuff, it's like the art seems to be first and foremost what he's selling. Like, he's selling a piece of art that also serves as, an instrument. Like, if you look at this guitar, you look at the price tag.
Somebody bought this.
Yeah, but someone can. But the thing is that are they buying it as a piece of art in a mansion or a castle somewhere?
Yeah,
because
most likely.
I don't see like someone that's in a gigging band. They're all touring in a small van using a guitar like that. That's just, there's nothing practical about it. It's art. I get it. It's not my thing. I'm sure for someone, if they have the amp and the guitar in a mansion somewhere and they invite, their famous guitar player friend over and he's playing through that and he's going like, wow, this is cool. But, I wouldn't tour with it, but in the studio, that would be awesome. That'd be a talking piece.
Yeah. And then you can also buy angel hair strings for guitar.
Just
Look at
140 euros.
For 5 sets. What the fuck are angel hair strings? There's not even a description to that. It's just 5 sets of golden angel hair strings for guitar. Gauges 10 to 48. Round wound. That's it. I mean,
okay. That's why I'm saying for me, being a broke ass musician, I look at this and I go, this doesn't cater to me at all. Like, no. But apparently, even have 40. Go ahead.
Apparently, there's a market for this, and I think at first I thought it would be fun to look at this and talk about this and like make it sound ridiculous, but I think we're dedicating way too much time to this. It's unbelievable.
Like, we're in a bitchy mood, man.
Wow. Yeah. Apparently we are. That's god.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look at something that I saw that I really liked. So Gibson, and I know we always mention the name Gibson and then something negative comes around.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there are negative things to say. Doesn't matter, but in this case, it's actually cool. So I found this article. It's also Ultimate Guitar. Gibson and Noel Gallagher release a limited 78 Les Paul custom guitar series and dedicate profits to charity. That I like.
That's cool.
That's cool. I really like. It's limited 20 unit Les Paul series, so 20 pieces. That's also pretty. 20 pieces is nice. It's I think it's a good amount. The partnership celebrates the grand opening of the Gibson Garage in London. We are going to get to that afterwards as well, because they opened that last Saturday. They opened it like prior to Saturday for dealers and like industry professionals, but then on Saturday they had a big opening. The complete profits from the sale of the 20 guitars will be donated by Gibson and Noel Gallagher to support Teenage Cancer Trust. Amazing. I like it.
Yeah.
Absolutely Like it, the Noel Gallagher 78 custom Les Paul guitar design was inspired by the guitar originally given to Gallagher by Johnny Marr, used extensively in the Oasis recording sessions and live shows, most notably in the music video for the song Whatever. Yeah. And also it's, you can say whatever you want, but this like simple, straightforward, sleek Les Paul design, it's nice. It's classy.
It's a great looking guitar. Yeah. I like it.
Absolutely. Love it. I hope it's not too heavy because these like 70s Les Pauls tend to be very heavy. So
yeah, they are.
Yes, they are. So that's that's amazing. I really like that. And then in other related news around Gibson, so Gibson also announced a partnership with Jimmy Page. I mean, it's not like Jimmy Page needs to be, announced a Gibson artist. He has been playing Les Pauls for the majority of his career, amongst other guitars. But yeah, in what feels like an extremely logical partnership, Jimmy Page and Gibson are back together. Okay, so they're back together. Apparently, they broke up, and then now they're back together. No word on when we can expect any announcements of signature models, including Epiphone. But hey, it's happening. Where's this article from? Gearguards. Okay. As part of the celebrations for the new Gibson Garage in London, we are excited to announce that Gibson has entered a collaborative partnership with one of the most influential musicians in history, Jimmy Page. And as we see on that image, there's a double neck guitar, so it's very possible that they're going to bring back some sort of like 1275 model that is, I don't know, Jimmy Page related. But yeah, that's just the initial announcement. There's nothing further here. These guitars, if they're expensive, do you remember that guitar amplifier? That
yeah, the really expensive one there.
The really expensive one that was like, I don't know, $12,000 or $13,000 or something like that. I hope the guitars are more affordable than that, because that would be a disaster.
And I was thinking about this while you were showing the previous article there with Noel Gallagher.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed, but the Epiphone has been going up in price, like really ridiculous when you look at it, because you consider you're starting to have Epiphones that are matching like some of the low-end Gibson stuff. And it makes you wonder, like, if I buy something and I consider it as an investment, where should I put my money? Should I put my money on Epiphone or Gibson? Which one will hold its value on the used market? And the thing is that if you're buying an Epiphone for, I don't know, $1,400, and you can sell it for $1,000, and then you buy a Gibson for the same price, but you sell it for $600 used. Yeah. Which one you think people are going to start putting their money on, right? So these Epiphones keep increasing in price, and the quality's there too, which is kind of amazing when you think about it, because those Epiphones, some of them just knock it out of the park, and they do have some guitars that are like, they need tender love and care because they're not that great of a player to begin with. Yeah. So it's a bit of a weird strategy on the part of Gibson. Just keep on increasing the prices of those Epiphones, and while you can still buy the Gibson at relatively some of the like same price point. So what's your take on that?
I think it's very simple. I think it's regarding new models that are coming out. I think it's artist royalties. Simple as that. So they usually, if we look at Gibson's pattern, they usually come up with the Gibson artist model. We saw that with the Adam Jones Gibson Les Pauls. Those came out first, and then at some point they released the Epiphone version, and some of these reached like new heights in pricing for being Epiphones, because they essentially come from the same factory. It's not like they're these are like made in a special factory. No, they come from the same factory. Maybe with better materials, maybe with better hardware, but they come from the same factory. So the same kind of principles as far as manufacturing apply. And so I believe some of those. I mean, we've seen the Kirk Hammett Greenie, that kind of made like the guitar that he bought from Peter Green at some point, or that he got from. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the story
he
is.
bought it from Peter Green.
Yeah, exactly. They made that, and it also was like a new kind of record for an Epiphone signature model. But there are people who are going to buy it because they see the value in it. And then at the same time, if we look at some of the older, like sort of Epiphone signature models, those are going to become more popular as well. So I think it's not going to be like one's going up, one's going down. Both is going up. And in the case of new guitars, it's just artist royalties. And artist royalties are going to be something that in the future, it's going to be more relevant for artists to find like other income sources. You don't make money with your music anymore. You can't be touring 360 days a year. It's impossible.
No.
And touring is the only thing, let's face it, where you can really make some like decent money. But that's about it, And then you need to, some of the younger, like more contemporary artists, they already, put their head into like product design and then release a signature product, or they start a small company like Misha Mansour, who started the small pedal company. So that's going to be more relevant than ever in the future, simply because these guys need to find ways to to get some cash together. Very simple.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Gibson Garage. So in Nashville, Gibson has like the Gibson Garage, the first one really, where people can go and you can get the whole brand experience. And that means not only Gibson as a brand, but all the other brands as well. They have Mesa Boogie M's, you can buy merch. So kind of a brand flagship store. And they did the same thing in London. So they opened that store in London. And what's interesting is, it's super close to the center. So that means either they got a good deal on that space, or they pay a shit ton of money in rent every month. Because I know for a fact that London center is just impossible for people to pay unless they have a really, 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 really decent income. Otherwise it's impossible. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that store is open on Sundays as well. So that means they have people that work there on Sundays to help customers. What's interesting to me is I've been kind of looking a little bit into people's reaction, and also like some of the guys that I know in the industry, and people's reception was kind of 50-50. There are a lot of people who are like, amazing, I want to go there, I want to try, this is where I can try everything that Gibson has to offer as far as brands go. And there are people who are only like experts inside like these brands.
Okay.
Which is amazing. So you can go there, and you can even go there and you can commission custom shop guitars, as far as I know. So you can get your made to measure, Murphy aged, whatever. So that's what it's for. The other 50% said like, why would I go to a store where I can only test a certain amount of brands and I don't have alternatives? If I go to a store that has all the brands, if I go there, maybe I'm not missing out. Maybe I go there, I test some of the test some of the Gibson guitars, but then I see a Maybach, or I see some other guitar that's, close, or I see a Heritage and like that more, and I would not see that if I go to the Gibson store. So, yeah, kind of 50-50.
It's, yeah, I haven't been to London yet. I do plan to go at some point, and I might make the detour to go see it, just because I think there's a good opportunity there if Gibson can really own in on what they're doing, to kind of give that aspect of a mom and pop shop, like a real boutique kind of experience, where you go there are guitars that are already made for you. The price point is not going to be higher because it's Gibson. It's going to be the same price you would have anywhere else, except there you're dealing with people who are just selling those instruments. So it's not like one of those stores where you would go into, and if they are getting paid by commission, they might make more money off of, I don't know, I'm just giving an example here. They might make more money off of selling you a Squier than they would a Epiphone. So that week you go in, you're hell-bent on getting yourself an Epiphone, but the guy's like, well, have you thought, the versatility of this guitar instead? When you're going there, they might be by commission, I don't know, but at least they're still selling in-house brands, which is like Epiphone and Gibson and Mesa and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So you might be going in there not knowing what to expect, and you might be coming out more knowledgeable about a certain guitar or amp, and you might want to invest in it, because now you just talk to an expert that works there and is able to give you some information. And since they sell merch, well, they are most likely expecting people not to walk out with guitars every time they step in. So if you go there and you're like, hey, I went to the Gibson garage and I bought some strings, I bought coasters, I bought a shirt, whatever. So at least, they have some momentum going. But if other companies were doing that, like Fender and all that, it might just reinforce, I don't want to say fanboys, but people who are dedicated to a brand. It might just give them a much more significant experience, because now they're not just dealing with buying the product at one store and never talking to any of the employees. Now they can go to the store, they can get their own guitars custom made. So maybe it's a way to get, I took kind of a long way to explain it. That's because I'm still missing one coffee in my body here.
No worries.
But yeah, so the concept is that this is perhaps a great way for a company to feel like it is closer to its clients, as opposed to always going through a third party.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say by a long way here.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, if you go there and you compare that to the shop that maybe does not have all the models in stock,
yeah,
that's there you can get. That's why they say you can get the full kind of Gibson brand experience, and that means Gibson Electric, Acoustic, Gibson Custom Shop, Epiphone, Mr. Boogie, and Kramer, which is which is funny again, because you can't buy Mr. Boogie on European mainland still, but hey, you can test it in the Gibson garage in London. So
there you go.
Since that's not part of Europe anymore, in quotes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then in the custom shop, you can pick out your wood, your finish, your pickups, and your knobs. Our custom shop luthiers can create or recreate the guitar of your dreams. Nice. Accessories, apparel, yeah, it's like, I'm really looking for. Hey, first of all, it looks stunning. I mean, look at the images.
Yep.
This looks great. Yep. To walk in that store, and it has to be like a great experience, which is what they're probably counting on. It's like people want to go there for the experience. I hope this thing really stays there and it works out for them, because the expenses on that have to be heavy. That's my impression. And since you just mentioned Fender actually opened a Fender store, but in Japan.
Oh,
so they
okay.
and in Japan they opened like the first worldwide Fender store that gives you kind of the same thing here. You can test everything from Squier to like custom shop guitars, And they are expected to do that somewhere else in the world as well. I don't think they're going to do something like that in the US, because in the US they're just too established with their dealer network. You can basically test all that stuff everywhere you go. Most of it, at least. So my guess is at some point Fender's going to do the same thing as well. And probably also in the UK, since it's their second most important market. Or it's like from the business mentality, the UK market is as close to the US market as it gets. So let's see how long they survive.
they might be like, if they can prove the success behind what they're doing now, there might be other companies that are going to invest in this concept. But I think what is going to make this work is that Gibson has all these other companies.
Yeah.
Like they have pedals, they have amps, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a company that only makes one thing, opening up a shop like that might not be the best investment, because someone that comes in and says, oh yeah, those guitars are cool, but I don't have the money, but I have the money for that pedal.
Yeah.
And now you can try the guitar with the pedal through an amp. So you're still getting like a full music store experience. But if you only sell pedals, or if you only sell, guitar pedals or guitars, you might not have enough diversity to be able to justify opening up a full shop with just your brand in there. So I think Fender could pull it off for sure. There might be other companies like Yamaha could probably do this, because they have like a foot in just about everything out there, and they've been like putting out a lot of quality stuff. You know, they do amplifiers, they do guitars and everything. So there might be a few companies, if these guys can establish themselves, prove themselves, there might be other companies that do the same thing too.
Yeah. Let's look at this. This is one for you. How do you like that?
That's interesting.
So,
okay,
Vox has given its line of AC custom guitar amplifiers the classic vintage red treatment. Here's how they look. I think it's bold. Yeah, the title says it. It's bold. It's really bold. I mean, if you're used to the black or the brown sort of Tolex, but I think it looks fresh. I like that the front here is kept in red as well. I think it looks really nice.
My take on it is that they've done similar things before, but if you have a close look, the logo is different, because most of like I have the AC15 here and an AC4, and the logo on there is pretty much the same as my old Vox.
Oh, yeah.
But this logo here is more like what they had in the 1970s.
Okay.
It's just like this rectangular black background with Vox written, but the Vox logo looks like it's squished.
Got it.
So I guess they kind of arcing back to that. They do have a few Tolex that came out in the early 2000s to mid 2000s. They had a very similar red. They had racer green. There was blue, purple, might be other colors that I can't remember from the top of my head, but this color here, I mean, it really does make the amp stand out from just being a black Tolex thing. And I like it. I think it's cool. I really have like a thing for the racer green ones. I think they really look cool.
Yes.
So it's I'm just wondering if do they mention if they've done anything different to the circuit, or is it just like an aesthetic thing, or
so yeah, it's let me see. No, it seems like everything's pretty much stock. AC10 C1 comes with a Celestion VX10 speaker, selected by Vox for its superior tone projection, obviously. Next up, AC15 C1, G12M, so it's greenback in there. No surprises here. And then dual greenback in the AC30. And the pricing...
so pretty much a standard. Yeah.
Yeah. And the pricing is 756, 1046, and 16 for what? $1,640 for an AC30? That seems to be a bit high.
It is high. I've done a video at one point. I forget which one it is. I've done too many fucking videos on Vox, but I've done one where where I talk about the price justification for these. And I remember when I got my AC15 in 2017, I think we paid $799 Canadian.
Yeah.
And now they're like $1,000. So they've gone up. And the thing is now you're looking at the price with the greenbacks. Put the Alnico Blue in there, and the price
goes up. Yeah.
A lot.
100%.
So, yeah, that's the other thing you have to consider. So that's probably why you see the AC30 at $1,299 and $1,640. Probably one has the two greenbacks, the other has the Alnico Blue.
Yeah,
which, frankly speaking, is fucking stupid. Like, it's a great speaker. The Alnico Blue is a great speaker, but for the price, they could make it more affordable. It's just that some people are just willing to pay that premium just to get the authentic sound.
Yeah, but then again, there are companies who have recreated, including like recreated some of the earlier versions of the Alnico Blue, and for a way better price tag. So I'm still, well.
The WGS makes the black and blue, which is based on that. That's what I have in my Vox right now, and it kills. It's a fantastic speaker. So yeah, I mean there's some alternatives out there.
Yes.
So someone that wants to get into Vox, my advice is if you already know that you want the Alnico Blue and you don't mind paying the premium, go ahead.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel like the greenback is a fantastic option for way less money. And if you're like not really sold on it, buy the one with a greenback, change the speaker later. It's not that big of a deal. And you're probably not going to pay that premium when you buy it new.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Cool tip.
And the last thing that I found, and that's more music related, but I found it to be kind of funny. So apparently there's a Slayer reunion going on, which is funny because apparently they split up in 2019 or 2020, I'm not sure. And since then, people have reportedly said that these guys didn't speak a word to each other. So like complete dead silence. Like Tom Araya, he went, to live wherever he lives, and like nobody has seen him other than for like rare occasions. And now suddenly, ta-da! Somebody needs to pay their expenses and electricity bill. It's I'm not sure. I'm getting a little bit tired about these reunions and farewell tours and like how many farewell tours did Kiss play? 3, 4?
I don't know.
I'm a bit, to me it becomes like very money grabbing kind of thing, because I bet you anything that the tickets for those shows are going to be all over the place.
Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah. Have you ever seen them live?
I have seen them live, and here's a little bit of a thing with me and Slayer. When I say I don't care as much for their for this reunion, then people might actually go, well, it's just you don't like Slayer. And the thing is, they're right. I don't like him. I've had this discussion multiple times with people who are very like flat-minded when it comes to metal. It seems like when you like metal music, you have to like it all, and you have to like the classics.
Yeah.
If you don't like metal. So you can't just go and pick your favorites and then go there. No, if you like metal, people are going to argue with you, and they're going to say, well, if you don't like Slayer, you don't like metal. If you don't like Iron Maiden, you don't like... Yeah, same thing. I don't like Iron Maiden. think it's cool, but I'm not gonna go and see them live. I've bought one Iron Maiden album in my life and regretted it the hour afterwards when I put it in my CD player. It was I didn't like it, and it's like, but I have a ticket for Miss Sugar. I'm going to see Miss Sugar in at the end of March, and I'm looking forward to that because that's an amazing band. And I've seen Slayer live, and they were okay. They were okay. It's not like I was like. And here's another thing. Two people of that lineup I've shared the stage with, because with my old band in when was that 2006 we had a very long extensive tour, and afterwards we had shows pretty much every weekend and sometimes inside the week supporting a lot of bands that were on tour, and we played in France supporting Exodus. And back then Paul Bostaff was playing drums in Exodus and Gary Holt was still playing guitar. And when it comes to these two guys on the outside, I wish them all the best because they treated us like we were lifelong buddies. We normally, and the support band normally gets the shit sometimes, you know. We get in there and they're like, "Hey, how are you guys doing? Hey, they just brought in catering. Are you guys hungry? Do you have a long drive?" Like super nice, like the nicest guys
That's
ever.
Awesome.
And I was like, and I was sitting next to Paul Bost. I was like, "Fuck, man, this guy played in Slayer and a couple of like amazing bands, and he's like the nicest guy." So
amazing drummer too.
Fucking hell, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I remember afterwards. So we did the sound check, and I only had my amplifier with me. They had the rest of the backline, so I played through his 4x12, which was a crank 4x12, I believe, back at then. And we did sound check, and I come off the stage from the sound check, and this guy, "Dude, what the fuck was that?" I was like, "What's going on?" "Fucking amazing sound. What are you playing?" And he comes up, and I had my diesel VH4 with me. He was like, "Dude, I seriously gotta look into one of those." And I'm like, "Well, don't tell Mr. Crank." Whoever that is. So I wish these guys outside, I wish them very well. The other guys, I'm not the biggest fan of Kerry King, but
it's I've seen them too. I'm trying to think. It's probably like 2008, 2009, something like that.
Yeah.
They were touring with Marilyn Manson. Now, you have to keep in mind, at the time, I was a big fan of anything that was aggressive. So I was listening to pretty much everything under the sun. And I was like, when I saw these guys come to Quebec City, I was like, let's go. Let's go check them out. So I went with my wife. We went to watch them. And the Slayer show was so absurdly loud that I have ear damage, like hearing damage from the show. My eardrums were like the whole time. So I had my fingers, my ear holes, and I'm like, fuck, because we were at the top of the row there, and we had the ceiling right behind us. So we had all like this fucking sound wave coming back.
Yes.
It was a pain. I had no clue what the fuck they were playing. So the whole time they're playing, and my wife is like, "Oh, it's this song." I'm like, I have no clue what the fuck they're playing. So the whole show was them just basically blasting my ears. And they come off the stage, and half the audience left. Like all the Slayer fans, they all fucking left. And then all the goth and emos came in for Marilyn Manson. I was like, fucking hell, how childish. Just stay and watch the fucking show. And seriously, Manson, the sound was superb. The show was great. I knew the songs and everything, and he put on a hell of a fucking show. So it's like, this is back like almost 20 years ago when you think about it. And I love Slayer. I think they are like titans in that, like the big fours. But for me, it's like going to see them again. I saw them once. I'm good. I already have hearing aids. I don't need more hearing damage. I'm good.
Yeah.
So fuck, man, that was brutal. And the thing is that if you enjoy that, kudos to you. That's awesome. But music taste will change with time, and I'm at a point where it's like I went to see Rammstein last year, and that was fucking amazing. That band is just absolutely killer.
Yeah, it is.
Visually speaking, and the everything about them was tight. And these guys are not getting any younger either. No. The singer from that band, I think, is like 60 years old at this point, and the guy's still fucking rocking all the fireworks and all this stuff. So yeah, that was a much more enjoyable show for me because I like the theatrics.
Yeah,
that come along with playing live. Just being like standing there and fucking headbanging for an hour is like, I've seen that. I've done that myself. It's boring. So when I go to see a show, I want to be entertained.
Yeah.
So sadly for me, yeah, Slayer
100%
doesn't do that
100%.
for me
Sometimes having a certain band support you on tour can be a mistake. Especially if that band is known to be, I mean, obviously you want cool bands on your bill because that's going to help with the ticket sales. But I've been to a couple of shows where the support band was so much better, sounded so much better, and I enjoyed it so much more than afterwards. The main act was like, well, happened to me with Nevermore. Nevermore played in front of Disturbed, and afterwards I was like, well, who gives a shit about Disturbed? This band just left the stage in shambles because they were like, back then the lineup was like just fucking amazing. Happened to me with Deftones. I went to the Deftones show, and the support act was A Perfect Circle. I mean, why are you? Yeah, I mean, I know these guys are friends, and that's why they kind of invited them. But I was like, A Perfect Circle absolutely crushed the thing, absolutely. And then afterwards, Deftones was okay. It was okay. It wasn't bad, but also it didn't blow me away. Then would have been different with a band that nobody knows. But yeah.
Perfect Circle, I saw them, I think it was like when they came out with the second album, Mère de Nom. So I got to see them then. And the opening act was a band I had never heard of.
Yeah.
Called Pygmy Love Circus. And we're sitting, it's kind of like a theater. So everyone's sitting down, there's a stage in front. And this fucking huge dude comes out with an axe. And he's like singing, he's got the axe in his hand. And funny story is that there's a guy sitting behind me that gets up to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And the singer is like, where the fuck are you going? And the guy's like looking at him, he goes, sit the fuck down.
Oh.
And the guy's like, turns back around,
okay,
sits down, and he keeps playing. Like no one was leaving. He was putting on a show. And for the first time in my life, I felt intimidated by a band. Like this guy looked like he was going to chuck the axe at this guy's head. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then they went off and they put on a great show. And then we had A Perfect Circle that comes on, and Maynard Keenan was wearing like
this wig,
long-haired wig.
Yeah.
And he was like shirtless and these big poofy white pants. And he's like dancing like he's doing like yoga or some shit. And I was like mesmerized.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at these guys.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, the sound quality was just absurd.
Yeah.
The bass tone, the bass player in that band, man, she was fucking amazing. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this has got to be one of the best shows I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And I came out of there and I wanted to start a band again. I hadn't played in a couple years. I'm like, dude, that's what I want.
100%.
I want to do that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
The same experience. And the thing is that the drummer in that band, Josh Freese, is now playing with the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that's the thing that mesmerizes me with a lot of bands where, yeah, I like what the guitar player does and I like what the singer does, but like some of these drummers are like so in the fucking pocket. It's unbelievable how musical they play. They don't show off, they just support the song, which is absolutely amazing. And I've had that with Josh Freese when he played with The Perfect Circle. And then I saw Porcupine Tree.
Wow, that must have been good.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Gavin is just unbelievable. What an amazing drummer he is. This is just, yeah. I don't.
Yeah. Was it?
Huh?
Was it the Deadwing album they were supporting? Or?
I think it was it was the out of Fear of a Blank Planet.
Okay, after, yeah.
And they played in a really nice venue here in my hometown, where you have also balconies, and on the balcony I usually go there because the sound there is the best, and you don't get blasted with the bass wave in the middle. So that was amazing. And the only thing I could look at was their drummer. It's just unbelievable.
You got musicians like that just, even though you are like a guitar player and you might be looking at the guitar player going, oh man, that guitar player is so fucking amazing. Yeah. If the band has great members all around, you could be sitting there looking at the bass player, looking at the keyboard player. I mean, there's some fucking amazing players in just about every band out there.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of going there and being able to appreciate it. And much like you, I have like this fascination with drummers because they don't think like regular musicians.
No.
Like a regular musician is going to be like, okay, so I'm going to be playing this guitar part here and you can play that bass. And the drummer's like, you know what? I'm going to make it feel like the song is going really fast when it's not. And then I'm going to take it, I'm going to cut the beat by a half, and I'm going to make it sluggish so people's head are going to move.
Yeah.
And they think in a different way, and that just fucking captivates me. I'm a big fan of Drumeo.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm always watching their stuff. Like they do these challenges where they get drummers that don't know a certain band or a certain song to play over the song while they can't hear the drums.
Yeah.
So they have to come up with their own stuff. And it's amazing how some of them think the same way. Like, even though they're not playing the original drums, they come up with parts that are very similar. Or sometimes they come up with stuff that has nothing to do with the drums on the original recording.
Yeah.
But it fits 100%. It gives it like a new life.
Yes.
And I'm just fascinated by that because as a guitar player, I always try to think like a drummer whenever I'm programming drums. So by watching shows like that, I'm always coming up with new ideas. I'm like, I had never thought that I could like put a swing feel over this section here. So let's try that. And then you go, fuck, that's exactly what the part needed. It was boring without it. And now we do this. And the song now is breathing new life.
Yeah.
So yeah, drummers, that'd be captivating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So 52 minutes have passed, and we haven't even been diving into the main topic. So I thought we could do a short 1-minute introduction of each of us, and then maybe get into some questions. I'm gonna start. My name is Frank. I started playing guitar at the age of 13. I started working in the MI industry in a small family-driven music shop in my hometown when I was 16 and a half, still during school. And I left school, I stayed there. I did an apprenticeship in that very store. And then afterwards, I've been working with brands, I've been working with distributors, I've been working in product development, I've been involved in the development of a couple of products, mostly guitar products. And I've never left the industry, so I guess I could consider myself a so-called MI industry professional for a little bit over 26 years now. And it's fun, and it's a great industry, and I don't see myself leaving because just because for the fun and for the people. That's me.
I'm going to try to keep it short like
okay.
I'm going to have a hard time, but I'll try. So I started playing guitar when I was 11, and I started to play gigs not that long after because my dad was hell-bent on getting us to play music. So me and my brothers were kind of like Hanson before Hanson. Okay, so I was the older brother playing guitar. My brothers are like 5 years younger than me. They're twins. And one played bass, the other played drums, and we were singing, we were playing weddings and stuff like that. So I started gigging like really fucking early on. And my dad had 2 music stores, so I would go in there and I would talk shop with some of the guys in there. I got to meet a lot of like top pro players who were teaching me stuff like on the slide, like, hey, do you know anything about bluegrass? Nope. Well, here you're going to learn how to do bluegrass picking.
Yeah.
I'm not prolific at it whatsoever, but, you know, it was just like being introduced to different stuff. I've had many opportunities to get signed to labels where it would fall through. I had bands where I did some touring. I did a lot of recording. And now I have a YouTube channel for the past 5 years where I do a lot of gear-related demos. It's called The Tone Lounge, just like this podcast. So, yeah, that's... I try to keep it under a minute.
Yeah, it's fine. Totally fine. I thought we keep that short so people get like an idea, and then we can, dive into some of the questions. I would like to start with a question, and it's something that you have mentioned before, and it's something that I've seen when we met at Guitar Summit, and I find this very interesting. So you said that you are wearing hearing aids, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. First of all, although you wear those hearing aids, I find it fascinating that your analytic hearing is still fully intact, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to put out like amazing sounding videos, and they do sound amazing. So that's
Thank you.
that I can definitely attest. But how did that happen? Don't tell me it was the Slayer concert.
No, it wasn't just a Slayer concert. No. Long story short, has to do with me having a fuck ton of ear infections as a kid.
Oh,
and
okay.
I kept having them repeatedly. So what happens is that it ended up creating scars on my eardrums, and those can't be fixed.
Shit, yeah.
And sadly, every time you have scars, it takes away some of the frequencies. So that kind of led me to having to play music louder. And then when I got in bands, I wasn't protecting my ears properly. So I was just going in and I was beside the drummer, and drummers are fucking brutal, especially in metal, because I was doing a lot of metal stuff. And eventually I would come out of whatever rehearsal, in a small room with a bunch of musicians with everything cranked. So it's a lot of things that contributed to me going deaf over time. As per your question, how I do it, I had to create a protocol for me to be able to trust what I hear, because at first I started to kind of suffer a mini depression, if you will. Like I was really sad, not that I couldn't hear, but the idea that I couldn't be part of music anymore, that music wouldn't be a thing for me because I was starting to lose my hearing. I started to get really fucking bitter about it. I didn't want to do anything with music. But then I got hearing aids. Got to find out that a lot of the frequencies that I've lost they can be remedied with the hearing aids. So it's not like I'm completely deaf. It's just that a lot of like I have a dip of about 30 dB, which is significant at 2K. So 2K for me is not something that I'm going to hear naturally like most people. I have another dip at around 8K.
Okay.
This is for my left ear. The right ear, the left ear has like very similar notches in there, so the damage is not exactly the same.
Okay.
I also have tinnitus, so I have that in my ears all the fucking time. So yeah, I've suffered pretty bad hearing loss, and the way I counter this is that I use a spectrum analyzer. So whenever I record, I'm looking if there's like any significant peaks, and then I isolate the frequencies and I listen to them.
Okay.
And if I can't hear the frequency for whatever reason, then I get my kids who have perfect hearing to come in the room, and I'm asking them, what does this sound like? And if they go, oh, fuck, then I take it down. So I'm like, I'm going to trust their ears before mine, because if you were to go back to one of the biggest videos on my channel, which was I think it's like 10 tips for the Vox AC15 or something like that. At the very end, I made a kind of like a shootout between two microphones, and unanimously people were saying that other mic is way too bright, but I didn't know I had hearing loss at the time.
Okay.
All right. So to me, that microphone sounded crisp and awesome. Now with the hearing aids, I listen back to it and go, holy fuck, man, that's way too bright. So I decided to, one, not just trust my ears, but trust other people's ears. And also I have some pretty good monitors, which really help. I use headphones to double check, because sometimes, like, if you're not in a perfectly treated room, sometimes you can have standing waves and phase cancellation and all this stuff. So I'm trying really hard to negate some of those issues, and that's where the 2-notes captor comes into play.
Yeah.
I keep having the same reference speakers with the same microphone and everything, and once I know it works, then I keep it this way. So it's very streamlined, just so I don't have any audio issues.
Okay.
So a lot of people say, oh, you have great tone. I'm like, it's kind of ironic considering I'm fucking deaf. But I think the protocol I have in place really helps me negate some of those issues. So yeah, it's something I've never talked about because I don't know, I kind of got over it. But for someone who doesn't suffer hearing loss, it might be like, what the fuck, dude? Dude is deaf and he can still play guitar and still makes mixes that sound okay.
Yeah, so
that's how I do it.
It's weird, right? People assume that. I mean, obviously there are ways for people to compensate certain things, and then again, we also have technology at our hand to compensate for some of the things, as you just said. Your hearing aids kind of compensate for some of the stuff that you've lost, and
that's right.
And you're not shy or afraid to ask your kids for help, which is a great thing.
No.
And and they learn something at the same time. So why not? I mean, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah,
it was something that when I was thinking about, okay, what kind of questions could I ask you that maybe are not related with guitars or with gear or with you playing in bands and touring. And that was that one kind of got into my head first. I was like, I find it amazing that you're able to do what you do, although you're wearing the hearing aids. So yeah, amazing.
No, I've seen a lot of musicians freak out about this. I being one of them when I first started out. And the thing is that depending on the damage that you have, depending on what frequency loss you have, there's still ways to function around it, because what you've learned as a musician, what good tone is. So even though you might not be able to hear it the same way anymore, you say, okay, for my own pleasure, I'm going to be boosting those frequencies. But if I'm playing with other people, I'm going to tame them down because I know I'm just compensating for whatever I lost. So that's how I keep the rationale around it. It's like, yeah, I want to boost at 2K. It's normal. I don't fucking hear it, right? So if I'm using a pedal and the pedal, I'm like, oh, wow, this sounds great. I have to really check with a spectrum analyzer because it might be boosting really ugly fucking frequencies that other people are going to say, that pedal sounds like shit. It probably does, but here I am, deaf guy, just playing with fucking pedals that are too bright and spiky, right? So,
but then again, people that do not wear hearing aids are using spectrum analyzers as well, because they want to make sure. They want to make sure. So in the end, you're not doing anything different than some of the guys who just are very critical about the result of their work. Yeah,
I'm
using. I'm currently helping a friend out mastering their album, and I'm using an analyzer because there's some stuff that I don't 100% trust because I don't have a treated room. I know how my monitors work. I know how my headphones work. But if you have a doubt, you don't make sure. So it's the same thing.
And another secret tool that I have for this is this. you mix, you put it on YouTube, and then before you publish, you listen to it through the phone. And if it sounds too bright, too brash, there's something wrong with what you're doing, because this thing here just reveals the nasties. It really makes them pop out. It
does. It absolutely does. I do it as well. I hear it on different just on different systems, and the phone is one of them, because you want to make sure that everything sounds well on the phone, because let's face it, a lot of people are listening to that stuff on their phones. It's very simple.
That's right. Yep. And you can go in your analytics and check that out, and you're going to see a lot of people are listening on the phone, and they might be listening through earbuds or the microphone, not the microphone, but the speaker that's on their phone.
Yes.
So if you're not too careful, like we're not talking about like tricking people into like EQing stuff to perfection. No. We're just talking about like the nasties that are going to come out anyways that are not very pleasant. They might not be an issue with the gear you're using. It might just be an issue with your mic placement. It might be an issue with the room you're in. So it's just normal stuff. We're not like trying to trick people into making it, because if it sounds like shit on the way in, it's going to sound like shit on the way out. There's no going around that.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Did you want me to like? Do you want to ask a question and I ask a question, or do you want to ask your questions, then I'm going to ask mine?
We can take turns. We can take turns.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question that's been bugging me. So just before I get into like my question, I just want to set the stage, because we haven't really mentioned how we met, right?
Yeah.
So that's something like people are going to go, who are these two guys? Have they been friends their whole lives? Like, how did this come about? So I want to give you the floor where you explain like how we met, how we started the podcast, because I think the story behind it is interesting. And I don't want to tell my side of it, because I'm going to embellish it too much. So I want
no worries.
Because you're more like, you're more like to the point and you say it like it is. So I want to give you the floor on that.
No, sure thing. So our initial contact was that I'm not sure if you reached out or if you commented on, I think you commented on a post, and then we started talking about me sending you stuff for review. That was the very initial contact. And I remember I sent you the pedals I had at the time was the All You Can Boost and the first version of the Surreal. And I sent those out to you, and then you make the videos, and I'm like, hell, this guy does really professional videos. I like that. So because it sounded professional, it looked professional, and that's how we stayed in touch. And then I came out with the Doble Cavron, and I sent that over to you as well. And I just really like the quality in your approach, and you seem to be a easy to work with guy as well. You know, that's sometimes some of these like YouTubers, content creators, sometimes they're easy to deal with, and sometimes things are a bit more complicated because they might be not 100% sure about how they approach it or not. But that wasn't the case with you. So that really like kind of stuck out to me. And then at some point, I guess I was just looking for what I could do next in regards to pedals. And around the same time, you said something on Facebook where you said like my dream would be to design a signature pedal with a pedal company. And I just asked you what this pedal would look like, and you said it would be two Red Llama circuits in one enclosure, so you could stack them, and you have everything in one. And I said, sounds cool, let's do it. And then we started working on the pedal, and then I guess within 2 months from that initial spark to when we released it at Guitar Summit, that's what we did. Pretty much, we talked about how it should look. We talked about design. I added a couple of features that I thought might be good, like the voltage control or the low pass filter, in order to get rid of some of that like brilliant shit that nobody needs. And and then Guitar Summit passed by, and I was always thinking about doing something that is easier to do than YouTube videos, because full disclosure, I started my YouTube channel way back in, I don't know, 2010 or something like that, where I started to upload like the first videos, which were like super crappy. And then
They're always crappy when we start out.
and then at some point it was kind of fun, but I couldn't keep up the rhythm. I was never able to keep up a steady rhythm, a steady pace of videos. So, and up to this day, it's difficult for me. You know, I can do a video now and then, but I just have too much stuff going on. It's impossible. I have a day job. I have this. Well, the pedal company is currently frozen for personal reasons, but then I have a family, and I also want to go out and have, see friends, have a drink, and that doesn't leave that much space for content creation if you want your stuff to look sharp. If you want your stuff to really look great and sound great, there's a ton of work around it. It's not essentially the shooting. The shooting is pretty easy in comparison, to be honest, if you keep the format simple. But so I guess I was kind of looking for something to share my knowledge, to share my opinions, to maybe, talk with people, interact with more people. That would be easier to do than creating content on YouTube the way it is done by content creators usually. So I thought, hey, a podcast might be an idea. And then I think I asked you if you wanted to do a podcast, and then you said, I actually started one, but doing one like on your own is kind of boring, and it doesn't really, it doesn't create a dynamic really. Between us, there's a certain dynamic. You have a set of opinions on things. I have a set of opinions on things. We both have different expertises, and so on and so forth. So I guess I was like looking, because this is easy. We sit in front of the camera, the whole thing is recording. We talk into mics, and then afterwards I could just like merge all that stuff together. I obviously do some work on the audio because I want it to sound good. But that's that's minor stuff, and if you have a routine, in the end, you just save the presets and you apply them, and then and you're good to go.
Yeah,
and I guess that's kind of our story, and we are in touch all the time. Not only about the podcast, but like we also exchange opinions and stuff on other things. So I guess that's kind of how it happened, and I'm happy it happened that way, because I really enjoy that. I really enjoy although it's kind of a virtual company, but I enjoy your I enjoy your company. I enjoy the conversations we have. I enjoy the conversations with you and the respective guests that we have, because
those are fun.
We that multiplies the kind of shades of opinions and whatnot even. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's, if you want to keep it short, that would be the
which is perfect, because that's what I wanted. I'm just going to put like a little like asterisk here. I think it's the dynamics between you and I is that I'm like this fucking loudmouth who's got opinions on everything.
Yeah.
And you're more reserved, but when you talk, there's impact. So the dynamics between the two creates, I think, what this podcast is about so far. That's my opinion. Like whenever I have to edit the videos, I notice like you're more like posed. You got your opinions. You're not afraid to say them. But when you say something, you say it with like panache. It's like,
okay.
It's like, get up in the morning, do your stuff, take a good shit, and that's it. It's like, there you go. That's Frank. It's like, there's the punch in the face. It's like he doesn't always say something brash, but when he does, there's a kick. And with me, it's like everything is brash. Like I'm like, I swear a lot. I have opinions on everything, but it's like my bark is way harsher than my bite. And that's just because I don't know how to say it, but it's like I have a tendency to try to see people for who they are and talk with them and get to know them. But then if I make an opinion too fast, sometimes I can fuck myself over because then I thought I knew the person, but then I don't really know the person.
Yeah.
And with us, it's like it's been slow. We've got to know each other over like almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
It's been about that. And, it's like, I know I'm starting to get a sense of how you are. You're starting to get a sense of how I am. So whenever we're talking now, I'm starting to have cues whenever you want to ask a question to the guest. And I know kind of how to back off because I can see I can almost see the script in your eyes. Like, I have a great question. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to back off, let him ask his question. So yeah,
Okay.
it's the dynamics is I find really interesting so far with the podcast because we have two different approaches. We have two different ways of asking questions because I think we come from two similar but different enough backgrounds. Yeah. You've been in the music industry for a long time with sales and all this, and I've been on the other end where I've done just about like only playing guitar in bands and recording and stuff like that. So you merge those together, we have two different mindsets with different opinions. So that's kind of the way I see this podcast so far. I don't know how it's going to transpire with like other episodes going forward, but yeah, I wanted to set that stage where it's like you have a YouTuber who gets in contact with a guy who was a YouTuber, also in the music industry, also someone who makes pedals. And then you merge that together. What do you get? Well, you got the Tone Lounge podcast.
That's a very good description.
Yeah, and this is going to bring me to the first question because I wanted to get you to kind of like set the stage. And my first question for you is one that's been bugging me for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've told me that you during the pandemic you were inspired to start FFX pedals, and it's just because you had a little more time on your hands. But the thing is, where do you get the knowledge? Like, how did you start making pedals? Was this something you had done before? Was this something that you learned right there on the spot and became prolific with it? How did FFX pedals start?
So regarding how it started, so actually, the very initial idea to do something myself, like to become a manufacturer of some sorts, I had in 2019 because I was like, I'm working in this industry for so long, and I've been involved in the development of a couple of products, guitar amplifiers, some of the software while I was working at Positive Grid, so. And then I thought I never did something like truly myself. I never did something. So, and I wasn't sure what I would be doing. There was an opportunity for me to become part of like a 4 people kind of guitar startup, but that kind of never went forward because the guitar market was and still is very saturated. And then also it kind of became very, very difficult to get on the same page as far as some of the design aspects go. The difference was I had been going to different stores and talking to them, and they gave me feedback, and I gave that feedback to the respective guys on the technical side, and they were like, yeah, but the guitar is built this way. And I was like, okay, if we can't move away from that, then we're not going to go anywhere. Yeah. Anyways, and then in beginning of 2020, very, very early, even before people were talking about this weird virus from China, I started to be really sick. I had back issues, like heavy back. I've never had that before. I was always like super healthy. I was always pretty fit. And at some point, for some reason, like too many hours sitting and whatnot, I had really, really issues with my back, and it knocked me out a couple of months. And during that time, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was like, okay, so now maybe I can think of what I want to do. And it seems funny that I have all this background in sales in this industry, and then I go and decide it would be a great idea to start a pedal company because the market is so saturated. I think I might have a good chance of like this thing being successful. But then again, I trust my abilities and I trust my ears, which is, I think, the most important thing. You can be the best circuit designer in the world. You can be the best guitar player in the world and demo your respective products. But if you don't have ears, analytic ears, to really know, okay, this sounds great and that's going to sound great, whatever amp you're going to play it with, then it's not worth anything to me. It is very simple. I know a few guys who are absolute geniuses in circuit design, but their stuff never sounded great to me. So, and I trusted that. So at some point when I became fitter, I actually did an internship. You could say that. So my good buddy Chris at Jupiter Effects offered me to stay at his place for 2 weeks. And I would just be in his workshop and solder and drill and look at like all these different designs. I designed like my first 2 like sort of kind of clone pedals, and we were looking at components and what components do and all that kind of stuff. And all that technical knowledge I had before, because during my apprenticeship in that small like family music shop, we had a very great technician there. This guy was so skilled, and he was like so happy to share his knowledge. So I knew about like the theoretical side of things. I knew all that, but I've never put it into practice. And then also, I wanted to know if I actually like a production environment, because making pedals and creating them and like putting them out the world is one thing, but then afterwards, like sitting and producing things in batches and then putting them together, and then having the stamina and the discipline to keep that up in order to keep a certain stock or to reach certain goals. That's another thing. You also need to like doing that. If you don't, then you're going to most likely fail miserably. I've seen so many, and during the pandemic, the amount of pedal companies got even bigger because everybody started making fuzz pedals during the pandemic. And some of these guys are still there, and other guys are gone because they're like, they have this romantic idea of becoming a pedal builder, a pedal creator. But then when it came to like producing and keeping up the production in order to like, okay, now I'm going to send it out to YouTubers, and that's when it counts. That's when it really counts. And some of these guys were not prepared for that. So they went away. And shortly after that practice, that internship, I went back home and I started eating up designs and schematics. And I bought a shit ton of like these so-called like clone PCBs because I wanted to know how some of these things work. Why does a tube screamer sound how it sounds? Why does a blues breaker sound how it sounds? Why does what's the essence of a clon? And all these things. So I really dug into all of that, and it was easy for me to digest because I had all this knowledge from like my very early days in that guitar shop. So and then obviously I started creating my own stuff. That usually you do on a breadboard, and you start putting things together. And then at some point I needed another breadboard because things became too complicated.
Too crowded.
And then eventually in like August 2020 August, something like that. I had my first prototypes. I went to a bigger guitar shop around 2 hours away from here, Music Productive, because I know these guys for a long time. They were like super cool with me going there and testing my shit. And that was when everybody was still walking around with masks, you know? So that's where I went. And I put my prototypes in front of a shit ton of amps to see if they work, because they have like 50 amps and you can like, there's like a central station, you plug in there and you can choose on a control panel, like, okay, I want this amp with this cap. And I want this one with this cap. And I tested it all and I was happy with the result. And at some point, one customer came in and he was looking at one of the pedals. He was like, cool, can I try that? I said, sure, yeah, try it out. And he was trying it. And then I left the room, I went for a coffee, and I came back and the guy said, dude, if this was the last available pedal here, I would beat somebody up for it. I would fight for it.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. So that's the first pedal I'm going to build. And that was the all you can boost.
Nice.
So
Wow. Yeah. So I'm going to come back eventually with questions about that one too.
So that's essentially
very
how it started. I had an easier start at some of the guys. I would assume that some of the guys who started from zero, because I had some technical knowledge beforehand, but that's essentially how it started. And yeah, currently it's on hold, but in my free time I'm still doing shit. I can't help it.
Nice.
All right. You mentioned that at some point that you actually studied audio engineering, correct? Was that when you already had played in bands and maybe recorded stuff, or did you study and take all that knowledge and it was the other way around, and you applied that into the touring and the...
Okay, so what happened? I'm a bit fuzzy on the years exactly, but it's around like the 2009-ish time period. So what happened is that I was playing in bands, and at that particular time, I was playing in a band that I had hoped would get signed to a label. So I was sending out like all the demos to different labels and stuff like that. And this is at around the time where gent and deathcore became kind of like the big thing.
Yes.
And I was playing more of a like dark wave goth style of music, and there was really no fucking demand for that stuff. So what happened is that I sent out a bunch of demos to all these different companies, and the only one who wrote back to me, I think, was Roadrunner Records, where the A&R guy was like, cool stuff, dude, but sadly, there's not much of a market for that right now. I wish you the best. And I was like, wow, I didn't expect to get like a kind letter from like a metal established label. So my interest in the music starting to wane down. Like we were going to do some tours. There was a band at the time in Ontario where the singer of that band, we started to get to know her. She really liked the band, and she went on to become a keyboard player for Cradle of Filth.
Hell.
And so like it's like she got to get a taste of what it was like to tour with like an established band, and she's still well established today. And our band, like we were still playing local gigs and stuff like that, and I got fed up with that stuff. So after recording the first album with this band, which was done in some guy's basement, and to be honest, the guy was pretending to be an engineer, but he didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And I knew even less than him. So I was all in awe of what he was doing. I was like, please, Grandmaster, teach me the ways of recording. I'm really interested. He's like, oh no, once you have this knowledge, you can't share it with people or else they're going to steal your job.
What the fuck?
I was like, okay, fuck that shit. So I ended up leaving the band, and I moved to a small town a few hours away from where I was in Quebec City. And they were offering a college degree in audio engineering. And I started in September, and by December I quit because there was only 2 teachers, and these guys were fucking idiots. Like real morons. They had no clue what the fuck they were doing. And we couldn't use the gear that was in there. We had to be chaperoned like we were thieves. And I got fed up with that shit. So for anyone that wants to look at an atlas or Google Maps, we lived in the eastern part of Canada. And my wife was pregnant with my youngest son. And we both had the idea of saying, fuck you, Quebec. We're moving to British Columbia, which is at the opposite end of Canada. That's a 4-day ride in a car. Okay, that's 4,000 miles. It's far. My wife is pregnant. I have my new driver's license because I didn't learn to drive until I was in my 30s. And I had my fresh license. We get in the car, and I moved my entire family from Quebec to British Columbia. Okay. And there I took a course in audio engineering again, but at a reputable school with some really fucking fantastic teachers. We had access to a real recording studio. It wasn't something with patio doors like at the previous school I had been at. And we didn't have to be chaperoned. There were like people that would come and see us. We could use the microphones that were there. So I did my internship there as well. I got to record some fun stuff, and I had access to a studio that was world class at the time. And that's how I started. And the reason why I wanted to do this is that I wanted to work on the other side of the glass instead of being just the studio musician. I wanted to be the engineer. And that's before I even knew I had a hearing loss. So, like to me, like when you have hearing loss, you think everything is normal. You think people are mumbling. Yes. You don't realize that you're the one that can't hear. So, I did my internship. I did some mixes. No one complained that my mixes were too bright or anything. So there was no real telltale signs yet that I suffered from hearing loss. But what happened is that I was supposed to have a gig with a company that was doing audio design for movies. Oh. So they were doing all the sound effects and all this stuff, like putting your hand through a watermelon to kind of imitate someone putting a hand through someone's face and getting their brains out kind of thing. So sound design was something I was interested in. So I applied. I was going to get to work on a pretty big movie. And then everything changed when my wife had a job offer. And then I didn't get to become the audio engineer that I wanted to. Okay. I didn't really get the chance to work in that field with like professionals and all this stuff. So that brought me to eventually start my YouTube channel. Okay. So that kind of derived from there. So yeah, I took all the knowledge from that. I still mixed some bands. I still did some records. I still played as a studio musician for other people. So I've worked on that stuff, but I wanted this to be my bread and butter. Okay. But life being what it is, I ended up doing YouTube instead. So it's a long explanation, but that's how I came to do that.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just because people get into this from they come from all kind of angles, and the history is always different. Obviously I learned some of that stuff early on, but to me, to me it was the other way around as well. I started playing guitar, and then when I was about to like leave school, I was looking at, okay, what could I do that keeps me close to the guitar? And the alternative was to stay in school for another 3 years and then go to university, because that's how it works here in Germany. You need to add 3 years to school, and then you're eligible to go to university and then study music. But that would have kept me close to the guitar, but I was fascinated by sound, not necessarily by the teachings of music. So, and that's when I decided to leave school after 10 years of school and start working in that shop. And there were times where I regretted not going to university and study, but I've picked up so much knowledge over the course of the last 26 years, not only in like sound, also music, also the teachings of music, because of the contact you have with people that are teaching music or that have like extended knowledge, but also other skills, including programming skills, because at some point, or like the whole video and audiography thing. At some point, I was also interested, like, okay, so we have this guy who records us and then mixes the whole thing, and then he comes with the result. And the thing is, it was back then, the guy was also the singer of the band, so he had like an idea how the band should sound. And I listened to it and I'm like, oh, it sounds okay, but I wouldn't do it that way. And that's how I became interested in like, okay, how does recording work, and how does mixing work, and how does mastering work? And that's when I decided, like, okay, I'm gonna get an affordable laptop. And I'm gonna start learning these things myself. So that's why I say people come into this from all kind of angles.
Exactly. Yeah. My question that would follow that is, I see that you're a man of many trades. Like, you wear a lot of hats, so it looks like you are very knowledgeable of what is the marketing side of things, the electronic side of things. You know way more than I do about cameras and apertures and all this stuff.
Okay.
So whenever I was talking with you about that stuff, you were like, oh yeah, you need this lens and this is, and I was like, okay, I'm self-taught. I don't know half this shit.
So am I.
Like, okay,
So am I.
yeah. But there's a degree sometimes of where I start to learn stuff and I say, okay, I got what I need out of this like pursuit. I don't need more, because the rest of it, it's not something I'm going to end up using. And if I do, I'll come back and I'll figure it out. And I find that every time we talk together, I see that you have like a really big sphere of interest. You have a very like more technocrat type of attitude where you like to know the nitty gritty of stuff. Like, you like to know how it works. So have you always been like that, or is this something you developed?
I think it's something I developed, and full disclosure, so in elementary school, at least the one that I went to, at the like beginning of the 4th year, because in the 5th year you're going to change to the next higher school form here in Germany. Beginning of the 4th year, they conduct an intelligence test with you, because then they can recommend what kind of type of school you could go to afterwards. Because there are, again, if you go to the next school, there are 3 types of schools with different levels, and one level is going to be more basic, and the degree you'll get from that school makes you eligible for certain things to do afterwards. Then there's a mid-tier one, and there's a like the and they did that intelligence test, and apparently it was way above average. At least that's what my mom told me at some point. It was way much. So they thought, yeah, you're to the highest school ever. So they sent me to a school with the best reputation in town, and the first year was okay, but then the second year was failing miserably. I really, and that was not because I wasn't smart enough. The problem was that the social aspect was very difficult for me, because a lot of sons and daughters of people with very good financial situation went to that school, and I wasn't able to keep up. You know, we just had built a house, and so money wasn't sitting loose. You know, money was pretty tight, because if you build a house, building a house is expensive everywhere. But so I wasn't able to keep up. I wasn't able to keep up with the cool bike. I wasn't able to keep up with the clothing. Nothing really. And that put me in a spot where it completely threw me off. And then, during my time in school, a lot of teachers describe me as, it seems like I'm bored. It seems like I'm very bored when I'm sitting in these classes. And the way it turned out, yes, I was pretty bored, and afterwards I was able to keep up with these things because I was maybe challenged with the wrong challenges. It might have been better to send me to a school where they do certain things, or where they kind of incentivize certain skills. That would have been better for me. So when I discovered that, I became one of these guys, as you described it, that goes into the nitty-gritty details. If there's something to figure out that I want to do, I want to know everything. And that was with the same with photography, with videography. I just want to know everything. And even then, if I know everything, I might still not do things the way they're supposed to do, because I want to have a different result. You know, with mixing, for example, I know that there are certain teachings about mixing and how you should mix a guitar and how you should place it within the mix. And I think in 10% of the cases, I actually follow those teachings. And then the rest of the time, I'm just going to do it the way I hear fit.
Yep. Makes sense.
And usually I'm right about it. Usually people are like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good," and then I look at like some of the metrics, and like, if you go to a university and show it to one of these guys like SAE Institute or something, they're gonna be like, "Are you nuts?"
I have a similar path to you, but at the same time, so different than your experience with school. So I was bored as fuck in school. But the thing is that whenever they would get me to take IQ test, I came out as pretty much having the intelligence of a garbage bag.
Oh.
So I look like a complete idiot. Oh, yeah. Because the thing is, I was bored with their tests. I didn't see the point. So I just winged it and I just wrote whatever. And every time I was pissed off that they were giving me these tests. So I would just not take it seriously and I would just do whatever. And these guys were taking these metrics as being the way to, estimate how smart I was. So I came out as being like severely stupid. And that kind of set an arc for me in school where I just wasn't listening. I was just analyzing the kids around me, the behaviors they had. So I became really good at reading people. But when it came to studying, I didn't give a shit. And I learned way later in life how to study. So I became self-taught. So I would take books, I would read them. If I didn't know the answer, I would go look on the internet. So I became really, really good at researching topics and teaching myself. And I'm extremely demanding of myself. Like if I don't have it right, I almost like punish myself for not being able to accomplish it. So I'm really goal driven, but I wasn't like that on an academic level when I was younger. So now as an adult, I find that I have the tools I should have been given when I was younger, but because I was too distracted by everything, like I was sitting there, dude, and I was like thinking about like going to Japan or, discovering a new ancient city somewhere. So I was really in my own imagination and I lived there like 90% of the time. So I couldn't keep up with school. School was boring. My head, what was going on in here was far more interesting and appealing. So it made me look really stupid. Now, I'm not saying I'm not stupid. I definitely am, but I'm more passable now. When I talk with people go, okay, this is a normal person. And I'm like, yeah, to an extent I am. But if you got to know me, you'd be like, this guy's fucking weird. What the hell is he into? So yeah, similar to you where I'm self-taught, but I think your interest is way more technical. I have an interest for the technical, but I also have an interest for the arts. So I find myself kind of being a conduit between people that are really technical and people that are really artsy. I can talk with both, and I understand both, but I'm neither prolific at the arts or at the technical stuff. I'm kind of like jack of all trades kind of thing. I do everything kind of okay. So just a little side note on that.
There's also, I mean, obviously, if I am talking to someone who needs advice on, like, for example, when you said like, hey, I'm trying to get this camera setting right. I'm trying to get like this kind of, I think when I sent you you wanted to do the video on the Arc of Tone pedal, and I sent you my footage, and your remark was that, dude, like your footage looks like super crispy. What kind of camera are you using? And then I told you, and we got into the whole camera thing. And the good obviously. Yeah. So for people who want certain advice, I'm obviously a great companion, because afterwards they're like, oh, okay, now I know this. That's amazing. Yeah. But there's a downside to knowing a lot of things of everything and having too many open doors. And I know it sounds silly to say that, but if you look at people who made it at their craft, it's because they spend their time only with that. Just look at guitar players. Look at some of the guitar players that we admire. Like, they only did this. And they did not 10,000, not 20. They did like 80,000 hours of playing guitar. And they're like master ninjas at their craft. And yeah, these guys might not be able to edit a video or take amazing pictures or program a little application or whatever, but what they do, they're the absolute masters. And that's kind of the downside of it, that you have a hard time deciding what you want to do and what you want to be good at. You kind of want to be good at everything. You will never be, unless you have nothing else to do in life and no friends and essentially nothing. Maybe then you can become at least like an entry-level ninja at some of the stuff, but you won't become a master. You won't become a master because it's just too many. So there's also a downside to that, and I am still struggling with this. Sometimes I don't know. I really don't know in which basket to put my eggs.
One thing I think we've talked about a few times is the whole ADHD thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something for me that came way later in life. Like, I had no fucking clue. To me, ADHD was like some little kid who was just like throwing ninja kicks all over the place. He's like, Power Rangers, and you can't get him to sit down. That in my head, I thought that was what ADHD was. So I always had like a negative look on it. And eventually I started to clue in, because my daughter was like, Dad, I think you have ADHD. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, come on. What do you know? Me? Do I look hyperactive? She goes, no, but there's more to it than the hyperactivity. Yes. And then she started talking to me about it. And I really wasn't interested in the topic. I was like, I don't have ADHD. No. I'm just a guy, right?
I'm just a guy.
Then I started to look at everything that goes into it. I'm like, oh fuck, I relate. I really relate. And then the deeper I got into it, I'm like, this explains my fucking personality. This explains how I am. Like, if I go out and there's a lot of people, that social interaction is taking away all my energy. And then I end up like, I can't listen to the conversation anymore. I'm zoning out, and I go back and I have to sleep. I'm like completely worn out. I don't get energized by conversations with people, not like what we're doing now, but I mean like physically, because there's all this stuff I have to do to make myself look like a normal person. Like, if I'm looking at someone in the face, I never know which eye to look at. So while they're talking, I'm so focused on which eye am I supposed to look at? Because I'm looking at the left eye, but I should be and they're talking. I'm like, Then I come out of there looking like a fucking idiot. And I never understood what the issue was. But this also has its benefits, where I can go down the rabbit hole. and I'll go as fucking far as I need to with the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert when I come out of there, but I'm more knowledgeable. So for me, I never understood like the fascination some people had with like someone who's so disciplined, they can do the same thing for, you know, an entire year or for an entire lifetime. You know, like I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. You know that Asian art where you draw in sand?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you have to be super careful. Okay. That dude, 5 minutes, I'm done. I fucking rage quit that shit. I'm like, I don't have the attention span for that. But if you want to throw me into something where I'm going to have to learn the mechanics of something, I'm not going to be prolific, but I'm going to understand it enough that if someone asks me a question about it, I can distill it down to the simplest form and say, this is what it's supposed to do. And then people go, oh, okay. I just give them an entry, like a barrier of entry into knowing how something works without becoming like a technical genius. Like I can't tell you how the Rivera works. I got no fucking clue, but I understand the principles behind it. I know how to apply them. But if we start talking what parts are in there and what they do and the resistance and this and that, forget it. I'm not, it bores me to tears. Like I'm not into that stuff. Oh, yeah. If you start to tell me, okay, so if you put these resistors in series or parallel series, I know just enough to know what those things mean. But once you start throwing in the math, I'm like, fuck it. I'm out. And you're like, you know what? Look, we're getting to the good part. You understand the basics. Yeah, that's enough. I don't want to know the rest. It's like, yeah, but it's not that hard. And I've had people try. But in my mind, it seems like I only have some real estate for knowledge. And I don't want to cram too much of the same thing. So I'm all over the place. I'm really all over the place. And this can be beneficial, but it can also be a drag, especially like when I'm doing topics on something like, let's say I decide to go heads deep into, I don't know, the SD1 or the Blues Driver. And I'm like, I want to know everything. So I'm going to learn the history of it. I'm going to learn who the players are, how to use it. But if you ask me what's in the circuit, like what's the values, like what does the tone do on there? Is it like an active EQ? Is it a passive EQ? Fuck if I know. I don't know. It just sounds good. That's all I end up caring about at the end of the day. So yeah, I don't have I don't know how to say it. I don't have one of those minds where I can just dedicate 10,000 hours to just one thing. That probably explains why I play bass, guitar, banjo, piano, drums. I can sing, I do editing. I do all these things in little increments, but I never became a master at any of them just because my interest is all over the place, right? So that's ADHD for you. I never knew that until recently.
Yeah, I have a test coming up in March. And see if that, I already had to like send them a catalog of questions or answers to a couple of questions, and it's possible that I'm not. It's going to be ADS in that case because I'm not hyperactive. Hell, I'm not even one of these guys who sits somewhere and he's like nervous all the time. I know some people that you sit with them and you can hear like this tipping all the time. And it's these guys, they're like all the time like this because they're like tipping with their foot or they're like jumping up with their knee. And it's... yeah. It's... yeah. Yep. And to me...
That's me.
To me, I think what I do... because I think these people are like... I think some of these people are possibly just sitting there and they're kind of bored. Not all of them. Some of them might actually be nervous and they can't sit still and whatnot. But I think there are people that they're just bored. They want to be somewhere else. But they have to sit there and they have to spend time with the family, or, you know, when the family comes to visit and you have to sit there and then they have to wait until the dessert and then everybody drinks coffee afterwards, and the person, I just want to go outside, you know. I want to walk my dog. I want to, you know, play football in the garden or whatever. Do something, but not sit here. So, and I don't have that. at all. I can sit.
okay.
I am happy to sit on the couch and stare at the wall for an hour just to like relax. You know, I don't need to. I'm not one of these guys who needs to do things all the time. It's very unhealthy, and I shut it down a long time ago.
It's unhealthy for sure, because I don't know if your if your mind works like this, but I can have a song playing in a loop in my head all day.
Same.
And it never stops. And it's the same
Yeah,
section.
same.
Okay. So I have that. And then I have thoughts. I have the intrusive thoughts. You know, the thoughts like, what if you took that knife and you just put it in a stick of butter and just throw the butter at the wall just for fun? And I was like, it's like dumb fucking ideas, you know? So I get like those stupid intrusive thoughts. And then I have what I call the anxious thoughts. Those are the where you sit paralyzed, just watching doom scrolling on your phone.
Yes.
I should be recording a video right now. Why am I not recording? Well, because I don't know. I feel overwhelmed for no fucking reason. So then when I film the videos, sometimes I'm really relaxed because I had planned it out. And when I kind of do it on the spur of the moment, I keep fucking up. I keep like making mistakes when I'm talking. I keep making mistakes when I'm playing guitar. My lighting sucks. So it's like, it's all over the place. And that nervousness you were talking about is something for me that is kind of like a yo-yo. It comes in, it goes out, comes in, it goes out. But at the same time, knowing I have a deadline that's coming up sometimes forces me to work through. So I spent all week fucking freaking out because I don't have a video out yet. But then when I get to the Thursday, knowing I should be putting out a video on Friday, I record 8 videos. Not 1, 8. Because I batch everything. I found a way, like I sat down that morning, scripted everything, and there you go, 8 videos. And then if I feel so inclined the next day, I might record an 8 more. But then I could spend 3 weeks just freaking the fuck out, not having the drive. Like I have ideas. Ideas never run out. But I lack the drive to make a video. So that I think those are the challenges of being a creative mind. I think everyone has something. Yeah. If you sat down and you scratched at artistic people, you would find bipolar, anxiety. It seems like we are kind of like made this way, right? And it's those things that fuel the creativity. So there was a time where I was ashamed of this stuff. And now I just kind of laugh it off because it is kind of funny because the struggles I have are not really struggles. It's all like right here. So I'm trying to work at those things. And I think that like doing the podcast with you, doing YouTube, all this stuff is keeping me just busy enough where if I wasn't doing this shit, I think I would be driving myself crazy. I really would.
Yeah, I get that. I get that 100%. Yeah. It's the same. So obviously my day job keeps me pretty busy and on my toes. I need to be organized in that, and then I just try to shuffle around the hours I have around that, which consist of obviously I have responsibilities for my family. I have responsibilities for my son. I'm the one who's working out of the home. So that means if something goes wrong in daycare, I'm going there. Thankfully, it's just 5 minutes to walk, and I got to get him out of there, and then he's going to be home. So I try to shuffle all of that around, and I remember at some point when we did when we started the podcast, and I said like, okay. Let's start this here. I've put up an email account, and here's a calendar, and here is a sheet where we can put in like topics we can talk about. And then you were like, dude, you are so organized, and I'm really not. I'm not. I'm really not organized. I am organized when it comes to that shit, but like for the rest in life. If I don't make lists of everything, I just fall apart. I just fall apart, and it's gonna affect people around me, which then annoys them.
Yeah.
And it becomes becomes a difficult thing to kind of maintain. But yeah,
Understanding your proclivity to do stuff. It's like if like for myself, I'm not organized at all.
Okay.
In my music, in my space here. But if you take my house, I do the laundry, I vacuum, I make the food, I take care of the kids. Like that part of my life is structured. But if you say, all right, Jonathan, you're going to have to go to the doctor and, get checked and all this stuff, and they're going to give you an appointment. I sit there and the doctor talks. Okay, so yeah, we're going to book you for, and I have no clue what the fuck he's saying because my brain is just not computing it.
Okay.
And then they give me a paper and I go home and they put it on the fridge and I forget about it.
Wow. Okay.
And then my wife is like, did you like book your next appointment? Like they gave you a date? Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, I'm just like, it seems like if it's not relevant to me in the moment, I completely forget it. And the only time I'm not like that is if it's for my kids or my wife and they have an appointment. I'm literally like, hey, don't forget that appointment. But for me, dude, it's like, I forget it. It's like, I feel like I'm so fucking clueless about that stuff. So that's why when you were like, yeah, here's the next podcast going to be with this host, not this host, but this guest. And I'm like, well, okay, so he knows because I felt so fucking overwhelmed. Like, just look at the mix up today, right? We had Kenzo, and I forgot to tell you that we were supposed to have Kenzo.
Yeah, but
because in my mind, I thought I had told you, but I didn't. So, yeah, and you're the one booking it. If I was taking care of this stuff, dude, we would fucking be a mess. We would be. So you're saying, oh, I'm not organized. You're way more organized than I am.
Okay.
Way more.
I try to be. I try to be. Sometimes it's Sometimes it's difficult. As I said, I'm organized with these kind of things, but yeah, sometimes if it's about like the daily simple shit that if you see someone being organized and then you think, well, for the day-to-day simple stuff, this guy must be like, crushing it. No, I don't. I really don't. And it's something that my wife has to put up with, which sometimes causes for like a hefty discussion. But I mean, a hefty discussion here and there with your loved one is part of the whole thing, obviously.
Dude, I think that's also the thing that's amazing about having new friends or having someone in your life like your wife or husband or whoever you're with that is different than you, is that you learn from them. Like, I'm trying to learn to organize myself. I'm trying to learn to get this stuff going because, want it or not, music is first and foremost for me an outlet, like a creative outlet. And I do YouTube and people say, oh, your stuff looks professional, like it sounds good and all this stuff. Yes, but if you had the behind the looks of it, it looks very different than the final product that you see, because there's the guy who struggled to film the video. There's the guy who was really motivated to make the video, but really doesn't want to edit the fucking video. And it keeps changing like that all the time. The guy who was supposed to release the video on Friday, but he released it on Saturday instead because he fell short of his own deadline, right? So what is presented to people looks sleek. It looks great. But if I'm stuck in a rut where I just can't seem to find the motivation and the drive to do stuff, no matter how much I kick my own ass, that can lead to not publishing videos on time. It's not something that's recurrent. It's just, it does happen sometimes. And I try to make up for that by creating an even better video than what I had initially set out to do. And I find that sometimes just taking my time and really not overthinking makes for much more professional results in all aspects of life. It's when you start to like freak the fuck out and feel overwhelmed that you make mistakes. And sadly, in the YouTube world, mistakes they're permanent. It's like, hey, idiot, it's that amp is not 12 pounds, it's 12 kilograms, idiot.
Yeah, but then again,
it's like 4 years later, I still hear it.
But then again, it's like that's obviously due to people not being able to just, keep it to themselves. I don't even.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not even close. Not even. I think I'm like a million miles away from that kind of setting when I'm watching something and I see the guy making a mistake, and usually they come around by like they say something and then there's a little pause, or they put like some script in it, and it's like, oh, sorry, it was actually not 12 pounds, it was 12 kilos, and they kind of correct it. And I'm like, okay, they saw it. We're all just it's just human, and we can't be perfect. We're not computers, but yeah, there seem to be people on this planet that are the exact opposite way, where they look for any kind of thing that it would be a mistake, and then like, ha, and you're like, really? What? Or people who cannot help but leave their opinion, even if it's like bad. See, that's the problem with the internet. There are a lot of good things about the internet if you use it the correct way, but there are a lot of bad things if you use it in the bad way. And those people who are doing that, who are like sitting in front, and then they go like, okay, keyboard warrior mode in 1, 2, and they're like leaving bad stuff out. I'd say that's the equivalent to the guy who, before the internet existed, was sitting in front of the TV, not being able to participate in any kind of form because it's just like a one-direction medium. And sitting in front was like, oh, yeah, I knew this guy would fuck it up. Oh, yeah, of course the economy is down. But this guy, that's what happened. And now the very same people are like, oh, I can leave a comment. Like, fuck's sake, really. Back then it was just, dude, I don't like it. Different channel. And especially in the US, they have
change the channel.
Shit tons of channels to deal. We don't have that much. At some point, I think after like 45, 50, we're done. We don't have more than that. In the US, they have a lot.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And I think there's something that I don't know how to formulate this. So I'm really gonna like think about how I can formulate this, because I have a view about comments that might be different than some people. Like, if you let negative comments, and by negative I mean like someone calling you like all sorts of names and just being fucking rude, if you let that slip through, you're kind of saying to everybody, this is acceptable behavior. You can go ahead and leave me like really shitty fucking comments. Now, at the same time, if any criticism of what you're doing is considered negative, so someone saying, hey, dude, the audio isn't all that great. I'm listening in on like pretty good monitors, and you have like this whistling sound, or this, or I don't know, your editing is kind of choppy and it feels kind of awkward and cringy, or you're standing too close to the camera and you're like, these guys are trolls, fuck you guys, and you banish everybody just for giving you this kind of feedback, then you're kind of like setting yourself up to have an echo chamber where you want everything to be lolly and great, and people are just going to say nice things. So I find that there's a responsibility on the content creator to know the difference between someone being a complete asshole and you having a really shitty day looking at someone leaving a comment and you feeling like really crushed that someone told you your lighting sucks or that your camera work isn't all that great, So if you can put your ego aside when you're doing this type of work, you can learn a lot, because I don't think everyone is set out to piss you off. And on top of that, a comment, you don't hear the tone. Like, I had a guy recently who left a comment and it looked like sarcasm and I played with it, I left a comment, but I made sure to leave an emoji just letting him know that I was kidding around. And the guy was like, I'm just making a joke, dude. I really love the content. Keep going. And we got into discussion, and it was, pretty productive discussion too. So I find that it's really easy to see everything being dark on the internet. Like everyone's an asshole and everyone wants to fuck you up. But if you take that away and you start to really analyze, like, what are my intentions right now? Am I kind of like pissy? I'm looking at stuff, and if people are not fluffing my ego, I'm going to take it as a bad comment. So sometimes it's better to let it rest, come back to it later. But if someone says like something like, "You fat fucking idiot, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about," blah 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 blah, that dude, I hide you from the thing, and I'm like, I don't care that you call me fat, I don't care you call me ugly, or that you say I suck at guitar, but the thing is that you're trying to make this personal, and you're just being an asshole. And in real life, I would fucking knock you out. Yeah. So I hide you. That's it. You're go talk in your own little space there where you think you're leaving me a comment, but no one likes your shit because no one can see it but you. So have fun.
Yeah.
That's the way I treat YouTube. I try to really understand people's motivation for leaving the comment. It's obvious when someone's trying to piss you off. It's obvious when someone's being an asshole. They're not going four ways about it. They let you know.
They definitely let you know. And I'm also like, I don't interact with these people at all, to be honest. I'm just like, if you are so bitter that the only thing you can do is like look for content and just like leave negative shit here, then your problem, not mine.
Andy Ferris said something to the effect of him approaching this like,
are you exactly
okay? Yeah, and I thought that was really smart because when you think about it, it gives the person who commented the impression that they were out of line. If someone says, "Are you okay? Like, what the hell is going on here? What are you playing at?" And it makes for a much more friendly discussion than saying, "Well, that's just your opinion, dude." Like, nothing constructive comes out of it. He knows it's his opinion, but he still made it known to the world that he thinks you're an idiot. Or like, I even had a guy like this. This is the experience I had. I had a guy on a forum on Facebook who wrote to me. So I see, like, I have this request, so I click on it, and it was some of the most vile shit I've ever read. So I reported him because, like, this guy's basically threatening my life. Like, he hates me so much that he's threatening me. I'm like, what the why would you talk like that to people? That makes no fucking sense. Like, if you don't like what I do, that's fine. But to threaten me? Go fuck yourself, dude. Like, you feel safe wherever the fuck you are in the world threatening people? Like, that's illegal. You don't do that shit. I've never done it. I've never threatened anyone, and much less on the internet where you have proof that you're a fucking asshole. Like, you do screenshot of that stuff, and I sent it to the moderator. He's like, yeah, this is not the first time I had issues with this guy. Fuck him. The guy was banned. And that's it. It's like, he's like saying some stuff that I thought could be legitimate. Like, he goes, "Oh, you think you know everything about Vox and you think you're this." No, I really don't. I really don't fucking think I know everything. In fact, I'm the first guy to say I love this stuff, but I'm not like a Bible, and I just want people to know that. And this guy just kept going anyways. I was like, well, fuck you, man. It's like, if that's the attitude you have, good luck meeting me and having this fucking attitude, because I'm not going to stand for it, like, at all.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's I sometimes I'm at loss. I'm at loss for words. Because,
I can see that, but it's something that you end up having to work with when you do this. You put yourself out there, and you put yourself out there for all to see. And if anyone is like, I don't like his face, I don't like his voice, I don't like how he talks, this guy sounds like a know-it-all and all this stuff. And I've had it all, right? And it could be true. Like I do talk in a certain way sometimes that makes me sound like I know everything and I'm arrogant, but I'm really not. Like I really don't think I know everything, and I can be humbled by someone who knows more than I, and I'll shut up and I'll let the person talk and I'll learn something. But when you do YouTube or Instagram or any of these social media, I think you have to have a certain type of personality.
Yes.
And with that personality, you have to be able to learn skills, and those are people skills. Those are super fucking important, because if you're thin-skinned in this industry, you're not going to go very far.
No, definitely not. And also, whenever you put yourself out there, usually you need to have like at least some level of like self-confidence. And you need to, obviously, if you go out and you put out information and you put out content that is in some way educating, then you need to back up, what you're saying in a way, which is why we are doing this episode around like our reputations, because we might have people listening to this and being like, what do these guys know? I've never heard of them. What do these guys? Where do they get their knowledge from? What did they learn? And I talk a little bit about our backgrounds and how we came to this point, and what we have done since we started might give people a certain confidence in like, okay, these guys know what they're talking about, and they know their way around gear, and they know their way around the industry and some of the ways it works. And that's why I think
it's important, and the angles that we're also both taking. I'm approaching it from just a normal guy. Like, I'm not gigging anymore. I haven't gigged in a long time. I'm just a guy at home playing the guitar. I do have some backing, that I can apply to this with audio engineering, all the live shows I've played. But the landscape has changed a lot for gigging musicians. The older guys, they still play whatever they were playing, but a lot of the younger players that are like in their 20s and 30s, the landscape has changed a lot for them. So they're used to silent stages. They use something like a Helix or HX Stomp or something like that, right? And for us to talk about this stuff, we have to know a bit of everything. That's why I have a shit ton of gear, not because I want to flash it. Like, it's behind me. I'm trying to just show that, hey, I'm into gear too, but I'm not like, oh, look at the gear I have. I'm so fucking awesome. That's really not the approach I'm trying to have, right? And I could say like, oh, look at Frank. You could see his workstation. Mr. knows how to make pedals, right? Anyone that wants to poke fun at us could do it. But at the same time, you truly make this stuff, right? And I truly make videos showing how this stuff works. So hey, we're not experts. We're not people who are like super well known and have contacts in this industry or whatever. We're just two people who love music. We love the gear. We love talking about the gear. And we figure if we love talking about it, there's other people who love talking about it too. And if we can get some of the bigger players in this industry to talk with two simple guys that have normal questions, like, we're not going to be super technical. We talk to them like someone else would. Like, imagine, I don't know, your name is Alberto, and you're walking down the street, you're a guitar player, and you see Brian Wampler in a shop. And you stop in and you sit there, and Brian's like, yeah, come on down. Like, oh, you play, what are your pedals? And you start chatting with him. That's essentially what the fuck we're doing. We're just talking for the fun of it. I mean, how cool is it that we had all the guests that we've had so far? The first guest, Chris Jupiter, brilliant fucking guy. Really cool, right? It was great to have him on. Frank Falbo, Remco, Jose from Thermion. We've had a few YouTubers on here too, and we're going to have some more. And every single one of these guys, they're like us. Yeah. They all enjoy the gear. They have fun. They want to put some good stuff out there. So man, it's so great to get to talk to other fellow musicians and see that we share that
100%.
thing in common. We want to share knowledge with people. And these guys are really gracious too. Like you ask them, it's like, you want to do the podcast? Yeah. And they're on here and they're not like bored out of their mind and letting you know that they're superior to you. We're all on the same level talking to each other. And I fucking love doing the podcast for this reason.
Yeah, same. I love it. And I approach this from the and obviously I'm not even close to, the numbers and the guests that this guy has, but I'm trying to approach this from a like Joe Rogan kind of view, where he says like, I'm basically stupid and I'm inviting people to learn stuff. I don't consider myself like basically stupid. I know a lot of shit, but I'm always eager to know more. And with the guests that we had so far, and even if it was just like a different angle on a topic that I have been, dealing with or looking at myself, but then this guy comes around and he says something and I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't seen it that way. It might be different. Or maybe I believed something to be, actually the way that I thought it was. And then this other guy comes around and says, hey, actually it was this way. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know that. I believed it was. Essentially I want to learn stuff. I want interaction, and wherever I can and where it applies, I want to share my knowledge and experience. That's the,
same here. And I think coming from two different backgrounds when it comes to music, putting that together and having awesome guests that come in and talk with us. Sometimes you relate more to the guest, but I'm sitting there learning a fuck ton of stuff. Or sometimes it can be the both of us like really relating to the guest. Notably, like when we had Frank Falbo on last week, it's like we were both sitting there going like, holy fuck, dude, this guy knows a lot. Like he knows a lot of stuff. And I'm there like, what am I supposed to say? Like, I don't know half the shit he knows, but it's like, I'm still entertaining the conversation, and I'm having a fucking blast doing it too. And we have some more people coming on that are going to be equally impressive. Some of the past guests we've had are equally impressive too. We've had some really cool stuff. Like when we were talking with Richard Oliver, right? It's like, he's in this industry. He's also making pedals now. And it's like super cool dude. I think that is the essence. As long as we got that going, it's going to be fun doing the podcast, approaching this like we want to learn from someone else. Actually, one of our guests that's going to be coming on, Kenzo, really loved the podcast with Frank Falbo. He's like, man, you guys asked some questions that I wanted to ask him, but never dared to ask. So I'm really happy that you guys asked those questions. That's where it's kind of like your thing. It's like you drop questions sometimes that I'm like, I would have never dared asking that, but a way of formulating it that the people are like, yeah, I'll answer this question. Like when you asked Andy Ferris, it's like, how much do you charge? It's like, I would have never asked that. But you're blunt about it. You're like, what is it? Or when you asked Frank Falbo about the whole thing there with the Abasi guitars and all this stuff, it's like, I wasn't even aware that was a thing. But you asked
it's very simple. What's the worst that can happen? Person says, I'm not comfortable talking about it. And that's that, and then I respect that. I'm not going to ask again. I'm not going to poke around. Yeah. And that's why before I asked Frank last week, I told him, these are the 3 rules for this podcast. Everybody can speak their mind freely. We talk to everyone about everything, and we want everybody to be comfortable. That's it. And that's why I like kind of threw that disclaimer at him, telling him, hey, if you don't want to talk about this, it's fine. I just wanted to know the timeline of it, because that was always a mystery to me. I knew what was going on, and I also knew what I was believing based on the stuff that was put out there, and I had an opinion, and I was definitely Team Frank. But I never wrapped my head around a timeline. That was still a mystery to me. So I just was like, I was trying to make sense of how this happened, because it kind of nobody asked this. Nobody asked like, okay, when did you guys start working? When did this? What was actually going on? I had no knowledge about this Japanese store or distributor who ordered like, I don't know, 30 watt or 50 watt guitars.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if Frank had said, you know what, I want to just, bury it and I don't want to talk about it anymore, fine. It's totally fine. I would have accepted that as well. But he was nice and open to talk about it. And on the other hand, we promised that we would not promote the podcast around this topic.
No.
Because that wasn't the focus was to talk to Frank Falbo, the guy who invented a shit ton of cool things. Well, the Seymour Duncan stuff, the Fluent stuff and whatnot. A guy who has so much knowledge around around a lot of stuff that is inherent in this industry. And if he's not doing that, he's a guitar tech for Steve Stevens. So cool.
Yeah. I mean, and we're kind of talking about Frank because he's the latest guest, but I mean, we've like I remember when we had Chris Jupiter on, like Chris was on and he says, by the way, like I don't want to make this episode about me, so if we can avoid like talking about like how I started
exactly.
and all this shit, it's just boring. And you come on, you go, well, unlike my co-host here, I'm gonna ask you that question. And I was like, damn it,
yeah, because
you're going for the throat, man.
That's who I am.
But I mean, we need that because I'm not going to ask questions like that because I would feel awkward to ask a question because I don't have as much tact as you will. And you're going to ask a question, but you find a way to ask the question where the person feels comfortable, even though they might have established they weren't really wanting to talk about that. And you give them the option. It's like, yeah, we can approach this, but we're not going to be controversial. And that is something that is important to me because I hate like the clickbaity stuff, the just making a storm out of nothing. So whenever we approach subjects, it's always great because we get to talk about the gear, but we're not making it personal. We're not making it about like drama or shit like that. So yeah, it's when Frank says, don't use that. I was like, I had no intentions of doing that one way or another because it's like I heard the story, but it's not something I'm going to retain and just focus on because I'm way more interested in the pickups and the guitars and all that stuff. That's really the bread and butter of what I do. So whenever people start to put drama, like, oh, this pedal manufacturer said this bad thing, or this guy said it's like, I don't care.
It really doesn't matter.
Over my head. Yeah, for me, it's about the gear.
We're almost 2.5 hours in. I think it's time to like bring this to an end.
Ask the questions.
Yes.
So I'm going to do the thing that we always do at the end, where I ask 5 questions about the top 3 things.
Okay, let's do that. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to do that.
Definitely.
Because I think it's a great way of closing down.
Can I, before we do that, I want to recommend 2 things that I came across last week. 2 sources of, well, one is for love and the other one is for knowledge. So the one for love, let me just quickly share my screen. And I haven't figured out yet how to how we can share audio. I'm not sure how that works yet in the software that we're using for the podcast. But I will, and then we can look at some stuff and have a laugh together. But essentially, there's this YouTube channel called Honey, I Scooped the Mids, which A is a funny name, and B, I don't know why this guy only has like 387 subscribers, because he has made some like super funny videos. He essentially takes videos and cuts them, like edits them in a new way that makes them really funny. Like he did Joe Bonamass's Rig Rundown, and it's always like, it's a total disaster. And it's really funny. So if you type in Honey, I Scooped the Mids on YouTube and you go there and you see some of the videos, like he also did the Play Authentic video that Gibson put out. He also made a disaster out of it. It's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. I love it. So yeah, go there, and he has a few videos, and have a laugh, and subscribe to the channel. Encourage him to do more, because it's great fun. It's really great fun. Yeah. The other thing I came across is, and at first, if you look at that website, you're like, okay, Psionic Audio, handmade in Memphis, Tennessee. So this guy is, he's making a couple of pedals. Then he has a couple of services, like he does amp modification. He does a lot of the like AC30 JMI modifications, for example, where he upgrades transformers. Like he kind of takes higher spec capacitors and resistors and whatnot, and like makes the whole thing bulletproof, and he erases like some of the noise, and he has like a few modification packages for like the AC30, for example. Changing the circuit to that of a 64 JMI is like $350, which I think is like super reasonable. He does that. He also puts power scaling in there, which is great for people who like their AC30 but don't like the volume connected with it. He does amp restoration as well. So whatever like old amp needs restoration but people want to keep it like in the same like sort of like sonic space, he does that. Also has like a nice little gallery with amps that seems to load very slow, so we can't.
He also has a pretty important YouTube channel too, where he shows all the how he repairs the guitar amps.
And that's how I found him, actually. So if you go to his Psionic Audio is like his YouTube channel. This guy kind of repairs the amplifier and films it, and he walks you through all the things that are maybe faulty with the amp. He explains certain flaws that certain amps have, like by design sometimes, because somebody made a decision to put something in a circuit, and then it didn't work, or it has a certain aspect. Maybe it's a lot of noise, or it's a lot of hissing, or whatnot. And the reason I found him was I'm kind of in the market for like a new small wattage amp, and then I was looking into the possibility of a Morgan PR12, or the Morgan ML12, since I'm currently looking at one, because I always like the Princeton kind of sound, but I want to have like a head. I don't need a combo. I just want a head. So, and I was looking for like some examples of the ML12, because there's nothing around it. And then I found his channel, and I found this video where it says like Morgan PR12 designed to fail, and I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. He's
and from that I went down the rabbit hole, and I was like, dude, this guy is a fucking library, unbelievable, and he has so much knowledge that I'm like, I'm frightened. It's just look at all the stuff, and you're like, okay, now I know what kind of amps to avoid. Or if I buy one, I might open it up and check for all the things that he pointed out that he saw with the amps. So I highly recommend go to Psionic Audio if you're into amps and you want to find out more. And he also does regular like live on YouTube where you can ask questions. So yeah, really cool, really knowledgeable guy. Highly recommend him. And I just wanted to get these things out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Great channel. So he
also makes pedals. Exactly. I saw 3 pedals. I don't know about the price point, but they seem to be very interesting.
Yep. Gonna have to check that out.
All right.
Alrighty. So we are ready for the questions. So Frank, these are tailored to you. They're not random. They are tailored to you. So if I ask you your top 3 guitar pedals, they could be yours or they could be from other manufacturers, but your top 3 pedals. They could be fuzz, overdrive, anything.
Top 3 pedals. It's actually very, very easy. So number 1 would actually be one of mine. I think that the All You Can Boost is my favorite pedal because I designed it to be a Swiss Army knife for whatever kind of situation that I could use.
Okay.
Whether I'm playing some kind of blues gig or playing like even in a metal band, you can use that thing. And it was kind of a problem solver as well. So essentially that's the stuff, that's the pedal that would be my number 1. Then the GFI system Specular Tempus, which is a reverb and delay. I think it's probably even that's obviously my opinion and how I hear things, but I prefer it to any kind of Strymon pedal, even the higher end ones. Yeah, really? I think it's an amazing pedal. It has a great form factor. It has all the like onboard tweakability that you need for the moment. And if you want to go like deep into the rabbit hole with that, there is an editor as well. So if you want to be like super like anal about the sound and about the reverb and stuff, then you can do that as well. It has MIDI. It has so many features on such a small footprint. It's amazing. So that would be and most importantly, it has a analog dry through, and the effect just gets like mixed into it. So it also keeps your signal super intact. There's no no coloring somewhat.
So there's no digital to audio to analog converters.
Well, there is, but they won't affect your basic sound.
Okay, I see.
That's that, and then number 3. Oh, I thought this would be easy, but apparently it's not. It's not that easy, actually. Yeah, probably the Jupiter Effects Silver Machine. The Silver Machine, because I've recently started to be more in the kind of like fuzzes and stuff like that, and that's a great fuzz, and it's an octave fuzz, and it can do everything from easygoing octave fuzz to extreme shit as well. So the Silver Machine.
Oh, really? Okay. Haven't tried that one, but I've heard demos and it looks like a really cool pedal. So yeah, definitely going to check that out some more. Okay, so second question for you. Because you have made pedals and you have a pretty good line of really solid contenders, what are the 3 companies that inspired you the most in terms of pedal companies?
I tried not to be inspired so that there wouldn't be such a big influence on the stuff that I do. But obviously, there's some stuff that inspired certain features. Like the the high pass filter on the All You Can Boost is essentially something that I looked at with some of the Friedman products, where they have like a tight knob. They call it tight.
Okay.
It's the same thing essentially. And I looked at that and I was like, that's a cool idea. I'm going to take that, adapt that to the design. Obviously, I had to change a couple of things to make it work in the pedal. But yeah, Friedman was definitely an inspiration.
Okay.
And then, which other company? Yeah, I'm gonna have to pass on that, because I wasn't looking at other companies when I did my own stuff. I was really trying to look at. I mean, I was studying other designs, but there was nothing that inspired me to do things, or would have inspired me to do things a different way. So.
Yeah. I was wondering if it could be more like, you were looking at, let's say, I don't know, Wampler, because you like the form factors or the logos, and you might like JHS because you like the marketing and the branding that they have. It was more like all encompassing kind of approach to like what inspired you, if there were any like companies that had certain tactics or approaches visually, or designs that you like.
Yeah, visually, I think Chase Bliss kind of inspired me. That's why I like designed these knobs in some sort of, they're not the same knobs, but there is some Chase Bliss DNA in the knobs. Yeah, exactly. Where they have like this like slight set in top. So yeah, I took some design notes from Chase Bliss, because they have like a lot of controls in a very like small footprint, and I kind of like that. But sometimes it can also be overwhelming for people. So later, I then kind of eased up a little bit and said, okay, let's give this whole thing a little bit more space. People also want, like a lot of guitar players, want easy to understand and easy to dial in, and lots of knobs are not helping with that.
Yeah, for sure. My next question for you is, what are some of the German brands that you think are amazing that might not be so well known outside of Europe?
Yeah. Jupiter Effects is well known, but and even outside of Germany. But I think they still could deserve some more attention. So Jupiter Effects for sure. Occo FX, definitely. I mean, he's the guy. Yeah. He's the guy who pretty much started, like this first, like initial wave of German boutique pedal builders, and quickly gained traction, and then other people followed him. So yeah, definitely Occo, and he's still. People know him, but there are still a lot of people who have never heard of Occo FX, and these some of these pedals are played by a lot of really influential guitar players. So that would be one, and then then it's difficult. Most German brands are actually pretty well known, especially amp brands. I mean, if you look at Engel, Diesel, those brands are very well known. So I'm trying to think, but no, I can't come up with.
I threw you a curveball there. Yeah, because you got brands like Walbrook or Rodenberg. I mean, there's a few German companies there that sometimes we don't like think about, or even like companies that will make guitars or amplifiers that people are not like too aware of. Like I have here the Three Bananas, which is a German brand, excellent fucking amplifier. the guitar I showed earlier in one of the podcasts, 48ers.
I know one.
I mean, there's a lot of
one.
German.
Codex Audio. Codex
I've
Audio
heard
was
of,
was
but have
with
no
us
experience with.
at the booth, Guitar Summit, and it's Ben, who originally had a company called Ground Effects, and he then changed the name to Codex Audio because at some point he also started making guitars, and then he just calling it Ground Effects.
Okay.
So Codex Audio makes great pedals. Really, they recently released a delay pedal that looks amazing and sounds amazing, and and he also makes very unique looking guitars. So Codex Audio is a brand that I would definitely encourage people to look into.
Perfect. Now,
Yes.
the last question that I have for you is your desert
Yeah.
island rig. So 1 amp, 1 guitar, and a select few guitar pedals. What would you go for?
Very, very straightforward. A high headroom clean amp. For example, here I have a Soraya Tone JM50, which is sort of a 2-rock 1-channel clean amp, and I would take a Doble Cabron, an all-you-can boost, and I would take a Specular Tempest, and then I would take one of my Strats and some sort of semi-hollow ES335, something like that, and I'd be happy. I'd be happy for days.
That sounds like a great setup, because I can vouch for the pedals you mentioned.
Yeah.
I own them, and yeah.
Your turn. Your turn,
Well,
man.
that's awesome.
Your turn, yes.
Oh, my turn.
I'm just going to return the exact same questions for you, but we're gonna
Okay.
shuffle things around a little bit. So, top 3 pedals.
Okay. In any
category.
Any
top 3
categories?
pedals. Stuff that if you had to go to a show to play, I don't know, some sort of rock gig, and you can take 3 pedals, what would you take?
I would probably take the Arc of Tone as my main drive. I would take the Fernweh from Jupiter Effects as my delay. And I would take the Surfy Bear Classic Reverb Tank, and I would call it a day.
Awesome. What are some of the Canadian brands that you can think of that kind of deserve more attention?
Well, I guess would it be really considered Canadian? Trying to think here. I'm trying to remember the name because I really suck with names. The guy who makes the tube pedals that are really
Game
fucking
Changer?
expensive there.
No.
No, not Game Changer. He's a British dude, but he lives now in Canada, lives in Vancouver. He's often mentioned on that pedal show. He makes I suck with names, man. It's really awful. But I'll come back to it if I can remember. But he's definitely one of those companies that you don't necessarily associate. There is Empress Effects. That's Canadian. And we have Fairfield Circuitry.
Yes.
Which is also Canadian. There was a brand, now they are no longer Northern Effects. They were a Canadian company out of Quebec, but they went out a few years ago. Trainer is a company that we have that should be huge, but sometimes people forget. So it's a little more than 3 what I've given you, but those are kind of the ones that come to mind.
Yes.
Godin being another big company, but people sometimes
Yeah,
forget
it's true.
they're Canadian. They think they're from France.
No, they're
they're French Canadian. They're so that
Then
would
we
be
do.
it.
Okay. Very good. And then, yeah, I'm just going to ask you about your desert island rig. What is the stuff that you would take to a lonely island where there is enough electricity to power all these things?
So there's the mindset would be like, I'm going there and
Yeah.
this is all I got. Now, there's a part of me that really likes simplicity, but there's a part of me that likes to have variety. So it depends on
Yes.
any given day. So before, when we had some people coming on and they were like given like some really blunt, like I would take this and that would be that. And I was like, holy fuck, what would I do? I think that personally, I would take the HX Stomp.
okay.
I would bring the Source Audio LA Lady, which is a digital pedal that has a bunch of like different modeled distortion pedals in it. And I would bring a Strat. And that would about probably be it. Just keeping it simple, portable, and a lot of options. So on the days where I feel like playing a Vox AC15, there's one in the HX Stomp. If I wasn't bringing the HX Stomp, I would probably bring the Thermion Freeway, just to have a more analog option. But I would try to keep it concise and small, but still have variety. I would kind of not give a shit about the sound quality. I wouldn't be like, oh, I need one of these big tube amps behind me. You have to service those. So yeah, I think that's what I would go with. Keeping it simple, small, portable, and having a lot of options. Because if you're on a desert island, you're not coming back. You might get tired of playing the same shit all the time.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. They're like, oh, I really like this amp. And then later on, you're on some other kick and you're like, I want to play diesel, or I want to play a 5150 or whatever. So I think that would be the thing that would help me go through all the different changes and interest, and not be stuck with one amp, one sound, and that's it. I'm not that dedicated.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, I think I guess that sums it up. 2 hours and 50, man. We're setting new records.
New records, and we haven't talked about ourselves all
we
that
always
much. Just talked in general.
Diverted from it. So that's a wrap then. That's episode 14. And we're going to talk to you guys next week. Next week our guest is actually Thomas Bluk. So we're going to talk to Thomas Bluk, and we are going to talk about Blue Guitar, the company that he has set up a couple of years ago, and that came up like one of the most interesting portable amp products, and definitely inspired some sort of new category for that. And Thomas is a very knowledgeable guy as well, so I'm looking forward to that. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, you definitely should. We're 17 subscribers away from launching our giveaway, which is the giveaway around the Jupiter Effects Warlow and the limited pink edition. So subscribe and hit all the bell icons and everything, and you have to be a public subscriber, obviously. Otherwise, that's not going to help you when we draw the name and yours is not coming up eventually. And we are also on a couple of other podcast platforms. So wherever you hear your podcast, if it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, we appreciate you following us on there as well, if you like listening to this. And until then, you still have,
I got one thing
please.
just before. Now, I always ask our guests what their desert island rig would be. So we're going to do something different. To know who watches all the way until the end, I'm going to ask you who can comment on YouTube what your desert island rig would be. So what would be the one guitar, the one amp, and maximum 5 pedals that you would bring? If you can leave that in the comment, we're going to answer back and let you know what we think of your choice of rigs.
Sounds like a good idea. Let's start a little conversation in the comments. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Then, the only thing that leaves is to wish you guys a nice rest of the week and a good weekend. And we're going to talk to you soon. Next week.
Yep.
Going to be a fun one.
Going to be a fun one.
Bye.
Cheers.